the way you survive a prairie fire is counterintuitive to human instinct. Human instinct says if you have danger coming your way, you run the other way. It's a survival technique. It's how we were raised for millions of years as a race. Well, with a prairie fire, if you follow your instincts and you run away from that danger, it's going to grow and grow and grow. And ultimately, it's going to consume you because you can't outrun it and you're going to die. All you had to do in order to survive that is turn right around, think about this, and run straight into the flames. And you're going to get through on the other side. You're going to be scarred. You're going to be charred, but you're going to be alive.
You are now tuning in to the Relentless Project. Real people, real stories, real life.
Oh, this is cool, and I was going to get into this, too. We'll leave this on the table, and we'll just get started. Well, I appreciate you for driving all the way down to little old Pittsburgh to jump on the Relentless Project.
So Pennsylvania is an interesting place, right? I'm a South Jersey kid. I spent a lot of time in Philly, but Pennsylvania is its whole different other animal. And people in Pennsylvania, I'm gonna warn you now, the amount of adult bookstores in rural Pennsylvania is shocking. What is
adult bookstores?
Adult bookstores, because they're all made by the same architect. You understand that, right? So it's brick walls, no windows, a lot of shame involved in it, and parking in the rear. They're all the same. And I'm little trying like, oh my God, man, what are you guys doing?
Well, you in the North Hills, there's like 3 just coming to the city.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. So that was what I noticed. But I do like Pennsylvania. I feel at home in Pennsylvania. I spent a lot of time as a kid in Pennsylvania. I'm a Phillies fan. I know this is Pittsburgh area, but I'm a Philly fan.
You're gonna strike a chord with some, and then strike another chord with another.
We all know Philly fans, right? Philly fans are unapologetic, and that's the way that I live my life. I was at the Super Bowl parade, and I had the opportunity to bring my kids there to see the chaos that ensues when everybody pulls together. But here's the cool thing about going to a Super Bowl parade. There is people from all different walks of life, and while the parade's going on, nobody's fighting, everybody's cheering, everybody's got a singular and common goal, and everybody is friends. That's why it's a city of brotherly love. However, afterwards, while people are drinking, so when we walked out, I have a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old. My 15-year-old's big kid, so he's behind my 12-year-old. My 12-year-old's behind me. I said, okay, grab my belt. I told my oldest one, grab his belt and do not let go, no matter what happens. Do not let go. So we're walking through Center City. There's cop cars. There's dump trucks blocking all the egresses. People are on top of the dump trucks. People are on top of the cop cars with cops in them. Shit's burning. People are climbing on poles. People are fighting. People are knocked out. People are passed out. I've never been in a riot, but it was as close to a riot as I've ever
I would
seen.
constitute that a riot. Do they actually grease the poles and everything?
Oh, yeah.
Like you hear that's wild.
Oh, yeah.
Like why? Like why are we doing this?
I've just watched stuff. Whenever I went to a Phillies game or an Eagles game, you always go to Pat's or Geno's, right? The world famous cheesesteak places. And inevitably, there will be a fight in the middle of the street because they're right across the street from each other. There's a fight right in the middle of the street. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? What is going on here? But it's entertaining.
It's something. When I was testing for the DEA, you'd have to go down to Philly, and I was staying in the historic district.
Yeah, that's by Liberty Hall and stuff.
Yeah, like where the federal building is, and there was a little place on the corner where I'd get a Philly steak. Got to get one.
Got to get one.
And dude, they would be people fighting across the street in the park, and the cop parked in the cop car just like watching and eating, and I'm like,
it's entertainment.
It's a different world. It's just if you stopped every fight in Philly, I mean,
one of the first episodes of Cops was filmed in Philly. All right, you guys and it's a gun battle, and I'll never forget it. The guys, they used to do things with their hats. Right, they always had to wear their covers, and the way they would bend their covers down, you look like a shark. And this guy is in a gunfight with his cover on, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here, man?
Yeah, because he's probably more scared of what happens if he's out of code than the gunfight. Well, this is the one with Kevin Donaldson, and I tried to put together all your titles, but I don't think that even does you justice. But retired police officer, if you didn't pick up on that. Author, which appreciate the book, man. I can't wait to get into this. I've gotten into reading lately, and it's
Well, I tell everybody, if you're reading it and you like it, I'd love to hear it. If you don't like it, keep that shit to yourself.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you anyway. And host of the Suffering Podcast, you have your own podcast, which you've started a nonprofit off of that podcast, and we'll get into all that stuff. And one thing I like to do is kind of give a little or get a little background as to who we have here, why you're here, why are people listening to this episode.
It's a good question.
Yeah, like so.
You should probably leave now.
I would urge you not to, just because of the things I hear you talk about and kind of what you stand for. Yeah, it's geared towards law enforcement, but I would say anyone dealing with any sort of PTS or mental health, I think they would benefit from listening to you speak and how you approach conversations, especially on your podcast. It's so funny. I tell people not to self-deprecate, but I self-deprecate a lot. When I listen to other podcasts such as yours, I'm like, wow, that's the way it's structured, the way the host talks, the questions. Yeah, I'm like, it's amazing. It's amazing.
So the funny thing about the podcast is I'll come up with an outline, just basic outline, and I tell every guest as they come on, if I got to go off of this outline, this show's gonna suck. So I'll get, like, the first question is always pretty similar, just like you. Let's give a little background on you, where'd you grow up, stuff like this, and then it just goes. Because here's the one thing, the one universal thing in everybody's life is pain and suffering. It's unavoidable, and people will do their best to try to get away from it and not have it. But here's the thing. You need it. It's essential in order to get to where you want to go. All right, whatever that looks like for you. You want to just provide for your family. We're men, right? So our job is to provide for our family. I don't care gender roles. I could give two shits about that. Our job is to provide and protect our family. Well, there's some pain and suffering in that, right? And even women, the traditional role of a woman is to raise the family, take care of the family, raise the kids, because they're much more nurturing. They're better at it than we are. Well, there's a lot of pain and suffering today, because I've sat and watched babies, and that's a whole other different thing. And what happens when you do that stuff? If you suffer for your family, if you put your pain and suffering aside and just do what you have to do, your family is going to be provided for. If the woman of the household puts the pain and suffering into raising the children, those children are going to grow up to be well-adjusted, good human beings, because that's all we want to do. So you see where I'm saying? You go to the gym, right? You work out. Well, if you just went in there and used colored dumbbells, we all know what the colored dumbbells are. They're usually 5 pounds.
Yeah, 5, 10 pounds.
All you did was colored dumbbells. Well, guess what? You're not going to get in the shape that you wish. If you eat like crap, listen, Danish are good. Bread is good. All that stuff is really good. But if you eat that all the time, you're not going to get to where you go. There is no shot. There is, Ozempic is the biggest freaking scam on the planet.
Dude, that's been like everywhere now. Yeah. Everywhere.
And what happens? So women are very guilty of this. They'll take Ozempic, they'll drop a bunch of weight, and they look like they're wearing a skin suit. They look like Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black, right? They look like they're wearing a skin suit, right? They don't look good. They're not attractive. And then what happens? So when you're given something in your life, like if you were born with money, all right, and I know a little bit of your background. I know you weren't. So let's say you were born with money. Would you know the value of $1?
No.
All right. So you needed to earn that stuff. You needed to go through that pain. And that's the story of my life, right? So while you're in the midst of it, while you're in the middle of everything, you don't see the value of this pain, right? And starting from when I was a child to my adulthood to my current life, I'm not through anything. I'm not better than anything. I'm not cured. I constantly work through all these things. But I know the harder I work through these things, the better the outcome's going to be. So that's what pain and suffering does.
That's a good point. And is there a difference to you between pain and suffering, or are they one and the same?
I use them as one point.
Okay.
I use them as one point. The pain and loss, okay, let's say, just to give everybody an example how this is a universal concept. We all are going to, at one time, lose somebody who we care about, right? So what happens when somebody dies? Parent dies, grandparent dies, however you want to say. There were bad times. There were times that you didn't get along. There were times that you disagreed. But when they pass, what you see in them, the bad stuff sort of fades away, and you start to appreciate all the good You start to appreciate all that good stuff that they brought into your life, especially if you cared for them. So they had to die in order for you to appreciate the good stuff. And money's the same way. Like if you were born with a ton of money, you're not going to know the value of $1. If you were born, nobody's life is all rosy, but if you were born in a household where you knew nothing but love, well, you're going to think that's just the way that it is. And then what's going to happen? You're going to go out in the world as an adult and you're going to get slapped in the face by hate and heartbreak and all that stuff, and you're not going to know how to react. As an adult, whenever you experience an emotion that you've never experienced before, you revert to the way you would do it as a child. What's a child do when they get a cut on their arm? They scream and cry and the world's falling apart.
It's the worst day.
Right. So as an adult, you felt that pain. When you cut yourself, you're like, ugh. All right, well, I know I got to go get a Band-Aid. I know it because I've been here before. So and it's what happened to me in my law enforcement career. I got hit with something that I never experienced before, and I fell apart, right? That's what children do. Children don't have the mental wherewithal in order to deal with all those things, and they fall apart. And adults will fall apart. So you train yourself, right? You train yourself throughout your life to experience all this pain and suffering. So when it hits again, and it'll inevitably hit again, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I know what this is. You lose that first person in your life as a child, grandparent, whatever it may be, and it hurts and you're inconsolable and all that stuff. Move on in your life. Watch how an old person deals with death. They'll cry and they'll be sad and all this stuff, but they will move on because they've been there before. They know what this feeling is. They've trained their body, they've trained their mind in order to do this stuff.
No, that's a good way. That's an interesting point. And that's what I hear the point as you're talking about. It's choose your hard, right? We hear that, or choose hard things. And it's almost like a muscle that people don't realize they need to work out.
And it atrophies.
Yeah.
It atrophies. You haven't experienced loss in a long time.
When you do, it hits.
Don't go to the gym for a year and then you go back into the gym. It's going to hurt.
You mentioned something that happened in your law enforcement career that was kind of like the catalyst. Because right now, you focus a lot on the mental health stuff, and it just in hearing you speak, seeing your eyes light up as you're like, this is something you're passionate about. Where does this stem from?
So if I go back to when I was born, I grew up in the Atlantic City area. I grew up in a time during the late 70s, early 80s when the mob ruled everything, right? The mob, and like Nicky Scarfo was the mob boss of Philly, and his underboss was Philly and Eddie. And I went to school with all these kids. The kids of these people, and they were just dads. But so kids have this innate ability to see somebody that's really important. They don't know why they're important, because as a kid, you don't understand the whole mafia lifestyle. You understand kind of why they're important, or you get it, right? You know this is a man of respect. But you can see him coming a mile away. The person I went home to every night was a true monster, right? My father was a monster. And so what did that do? That left me broken. That left me thinking that I wasn't good enough, thinking that I was a nobody, that I was lazy. My father's very racist. Used to call me the laziest white man alive. I never understood what that meant. All right, I just was under the impression that anybody who wasn't white was lazy. So I constantly tried to reinvent myself going forward. Maybe if I was good at sports, that would stop a lot of the stuff at home. Maybe if I was more intelligent, that would stop a lot of stuff at home. Maybe if I was a good thief, because I used to steal everything. Maybe that'll, give me some credibility on the street. But none of it worked. I'm constantly searching for that identity. I call it primary identity, right? Something that you can anchor yourself onto so it'll carry you with you to the rest of your life. And there's a lot of things in my youth that I'm very ashamed of, but I'm very unapologetically vulnerable with them because I did them. I can't hide from them. I got to own them.
Yeah, you have to own it. Yeah, it's accountability.
And my one saving grace was, so I was, as a teenager, I was a very good scam artist, right? I knew how to work the system. I was intelligent enough to know that I could work the system. Give you an example, I hated biology. I hated it. I went to a Catholic school, and the nun, she was a big football fan. She was a big Notre Dame football fan. So instead of going home and learning biology, I went home and watched Notre Dame and come in the next day and say, hey, sister, you see that Notre Dame game? That was fantastic. And this happened and this happened. Lo and behold, I didn't do a lick of work, but I still ended up with a B.
Yeah, you you earn it in a different way.
Right. But I should have been going home and listening to my biology and things like this. But, what did I learn with that? All right. So it wasn't so much the right way, but it was teaching me that relationship building, right? I didn't realize it when it was going on, but I was actually working on relationship building, not so much scamming. I call it scamming, but it's actually relationship building. And I was able to do that throughout my life. But the one thing I knew is I had to get away from South Jersey. All my friends were criminals, and I knew if I stayed there, I was going to get locked up. I was doing stuff that wasn't right. I was into drugs. I was into stealing stuff. I mean, and it just starts escalating. So I know I have to get out. I was smart enough to be able to get accepted into college, and I was somewhat still athletic, even though I didn't have a real good work ethic at the time, where I was able to go to college to play football. So I went away to college, and it gave me the opportunity to reinvent myself. So I figured, okay, I'm going to lock my stuff down. I grew up in chaos. I'm going to be completely different because I'm still trying to look for that person that I am. Well, that's what I did. All my stuff was folded. My T-shirts were folded. My towels were folded. My laundry was done every week. I was on this schedule, and I because of the trauma that I had growing up, I became very OCD. And it was kind of because you when you're born in chaos and you have the opportunity to take control, you clamp down, and you clamp down in pretty much an unhealthy way. Was it good that I was doing that stuff? Sure, but did I overdo it? 100%. 100% I did. And I thought I had it. I was in the gym all the time. I was working out hard, and I was doing the right thing. I was good in my studies. And then one of my last years of football, I just started getting injured. And finally, I ripped my groin muscle in football, to the point where I had to get surgery. And that sort of ended my football career. Now, what happens is I'm out in the middle of nowhere. This direction that I thought I was going in has been destroyed, and my life starts to revert. I get into thievery and stuff.
You start
like that.
falling into the pattern that you knew best.
Right. I start bringing into those familiar feelings, right? So that's what I did. And I got kicked off campus in college because I did something really stupid. I rolled those big wooden cables that they run lines on? So I went to college at this college. It was on top of a mountain. And those big cables, they're probably 6 foot tall, and they're heavy as hell. I lifted one up and thought it would be funny at night to roll it down the mountain, see how far it could go. So I'm rolling it down the mountain. And as it starts picking up speed, I see a security Jeep start rolling up. I'm like, I know how this one's going to end. Boom, hits the security Jeep. Poor guy inside gets out, starts running. I get away, but certain people I was with, they didn't. And snitches get stitches, but they ratted me out.
You weren't the biggest guy in the group, were you? Because they always tell me, they're like, hey, we hang out with you, so you're the one that gets caught.
You know what? This particular time I was, but I was able to get away. I got caught up in it, and that was a humbling experience, but it forced me to reevaluate my life. It's either I had a choice. It's either I could fold, leave college. I wasn't kicked out of college. I was just kicked off campus. I could no longer live on campus. So my college was 2 hours away from where I grew up. And I knew I couldn't go home. So I was left with no option. I was left with no plan B, because I think plan Bs are the worst thing and the biggest catalyst for failure in the world.
Interesting.
I had no shot at doing anything else. I couldn't go live at home, and I know I had to finish my education. So what did I do? I just made it work. I got an apartment, got a job. I wasn't playing football no more. And I just finished my education. And I wanted to be a teacher, right? Because
I was going to say, what was your schooling for as a teacher?
Well, originally, oddly enough, I went into college for theological studies, because when I started clamping down on my life and getting my life back together, I still had a little bit of faith. And I went to college, and I had this class called Bible as Literature by Dr. John Becker. And we started reading Samuel's 1 and 2. And I was reading the stories of King David, which I love the stories of King David, but I'm reading this story where David cuts off 1,000 penises and brings them in a cart to show Saul that he killed 1,000 Philistines. And I'm like, my gosh, this is a violent book. This is awful. So my faith like disappeared. So now I got to find a different avenue to go. And I thought about it and I said, well, you know what? I needed some guidance growing up. I really did. I was without guidance. I was listless. And maybe I can provide that to people so they don't go down the same path that I go to. So I started working towards being a teacher. I graduated with my undergrad, postgraduate degrees, and I became a teacher. And I'll tell you what, I got very fortunate. I got a teaching job, and I hated the other teachers. I hated the way they looked at the children. I hated the way they demoralized and demeaned them and saw them as just like cattle that they had to run through. So
for a job they chose.
For a job they chose, because to them it became a paycheck. When a job becomes a paycheck, it's time to leave.
I say, especially in law enforcement,
Oh, 100%.
I say that all the time, and I sound like a broken record, but as soon as you're doing, and I get it, not to be cheap, preserve and protect, I get it. Like, that's not every day, but when you go in for the right intention, right? Like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. Some days are harder than others. As soon as you start treating it like a 9 to 5, do everyone a favor.
Get out.
Be a teacher.
Go be a teacher. Go do something else with your life. Because if you think that department can't run without you, that's especially a reason to leave. If you think they're going to remember you when you're gone, they're not. And to prove this point, I worked with a lieutenant who retired like 3-4 weeks after I got out of the academy. I knew him, and he came back in to get something, and we had a bunch of new guys. And the guy, I'm standing in the desk, and I see him walk in. And the guy gets up, the officer on the desk gets up and says, "Could I help you, sir?" And he looks at me and I go, I just do one of these. I'm like, "You're gone, man. You know, what do you want?" So I let him in, but he sort of smiled. And that proved to me that this job, once you're out, you're gone. You're forgotten, you know?
I mean, we do a lot. Like, this county is one where there's a lot of events and conferences. It's like, I don't know why there's so many conferences, but all the retirees come out and it's like tell war stories. Yeah. And I'm at one event. It's like a big game dinner, and they're like, "Oh, he used to be one of your lieutenants." Well, not my lieutenant. I don't know who this dude is. Apparently, he had a lot of swing in the department. I'm like, I've never heard his name. And that's a place you did 25 years, 30 years at.
Right. So when you're here, when you're in that job, you try to do the best you can.
For sure.
Right. You try to make a difference, because every new cop wants to go out and save the world, make a difference in people's lives. And they think they're going to do it on this grand scale. But what they don't realize is police work is about making a difference in one person's life, being that corrective person, not that punitive person. It's not about chasing bad guys, locking people up. Yeah, you're going to do that stuff. It's about making an impact in people's lives and correcting possible bad behavior down the road. I learned that lesson very early on in my police work. Is this job is corrective, not punitive. All right. So if you pull somebody over, and so in my day, weed wasn't legal. So do you know how many kids I caught with a joint? Now, I lived in a huge glass house. I couldn't throw that stone. So I would make them in front of me stomp it out, because in my mind, I'm not going to ruin a kid's life just because he made a stupid mistake. And hopefully I've corrected that bad behavior to the point where, wow, I got lucky. I'm not going to do that shit again. And now you just changed the course of their life. So that's how I policed. But
I think we embody the same mentality.
You know, you write a ticket or you pull somebody over who's speeding. Well, why are they speeding? Are they speeding to try to get to work so they can support their family? By giving them a ticket, you're setting them back further. Or are they speeding because they're joyriding? Well, sometimes correction is in the form of financial punishment, right? Sometimes you have to do that. But most of the time, the fact that you caught them doing something wrong and scared them a little bit and just put that little vision in their head of what could be is enough to put them a little bit on the straight and narrow. But they have short memories, might have to be done several times.
Well, and then my mentality is, you know, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt now, right? Because if my intention or my purpose was fulfilled, you're not going to do this again, or it's going to be a while before you do it. Mm-hmm. If you're going to take advantage of that, I'm going to see you again.
Because don't ever mistake my kindness
Yeah,
for weakness.
like, I'll see you again.
Yeah.
You know, and then you won't have the same opportunity. So that's it's a win-win for me, right? Like either it's corrected or we're going to find out.
So after college, or after my teaching career, I did it for 1 year and I said, I'm done. Now imagine you're going to college and you go through all this different college and you're working towards a goal. And then you find out that's not it. You're like, damn. So I was just pretty much, I left that job, I didn't wait for a new career. I just sort of left. And now I'm back to square one. You know, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do in my life. I get this job where I'm selling software to private organizations and I'm traveling coast to coast, and it was a startup. This is late 90s and startups were the thing. Throwing tons of money, and I was making really good money. I was very young. And a chance encounter in a bookstore in an airport sort of changed the way I looked at life. So I get on this plane, and this was days before cell phones and the days before everybody had a laptop with Wi-Fi everywhere. So you used to read books on planes. And I get this book called Surviving Worst Case Scenarios. It seemed interesting. It was a little yellow book. In there, how to survive a bear attack, how to survive a knife attack, how to do this, that, and all these things. One of them in there was how to survive a prairie fire. So I don't know why I read that. I live in New Jersey. There is absolutely no prairies in New Jersey, but I read it. And, you know, so the way you survive a prairie fire is counterintuitive to human instinct. Human instinct says if you have danger coming your way, you run the other way. It's a survival technique. It's how we were born from, or how we were raised for millions of years as a race. Well, with a prairie fire, if you follow your instincts and you run away from that danger, it's going to grow and grow and grow. And ultimately it's going to consume you because you can't outrun it and you're going to die. All you had to do in order to survive that is turn right around, think about this, and run straight into the flames. And you're going to get through on the other side. You're going to be scarred. You're going to be charred, but you're going to be alive. To put this in modern day context, credit card bill. Don't pay your credit card bill this month. See what happens. You're going to get a late charge. You're going to get your monthly minimum is going to grow. Don't pay it next month. What's going to happen? Is it going to go away? Is it going to diminish? Is it going to be something affordable? No, it's actually going to get worse until it's totally consuming for you, where you're paying just the late charges or just the minimum, and that's how you're surviving. So what you have to do is you have to suck it up, and you have to run towards the fire. And that is something I read, God, I probably read this around 2000, and it completely changed the way I looked at stuff. And for once in my life, it was a concept that I could gravitate towards and I could apply to every aspect of my life, whether it's being in the gym, you know, well, it sucks. There's days you wake up and you don't want to go to the gym, right? You're tired. You're beat, you're hurt. Well, guess what? There's that little voice in the back of your head says, you know what? You've worked hard. You deserve this.
A break.
You deserve a break. In this world, we deserve nothing. We don't deserve a goddamn thing. We earn everything. And breaks are one things that we don't earn. So I know people out there, well, you know, you got to have your body rest and recover. And yeah, that's true. But don't take that opportunity today. Wait for tomorrow. Wait for tomorrow and see if you find the same thing. So it's the same concept as running to that fire, right? I don't want to wake up. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to work out. Well, I'm going to figure that out tomorrow. I'm not going to do that shit today. So completely changed the concept of my life until one day I'm in the gym. And I would always work out with this one particular guy. His name's Tommy Adams. I didn't know what he did. He just worked out real hard.
Hey, I know a Tommy Adams. What if it's the same guy?
I doubt it, because there's probably 50 million Tommy Adams. But he was an older guy. He's mid-50s, and he just worked out really hard. And him and I just, you know, our mentality as far as the gym goes, like, let's go hard, let's go heavy, let's get this shit done. We just always got along. But I never knew what he did. One day he brings this guy in there, and I find out Tommy was retired deputy chief of our prosecutor's office in Essex County. And I had no idea. Like, not that it would have changed the way that I perceived him, but I just...
It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, oh. And the guy he brought in was a police chief. And he asked me, he goes, well, have you ever thought about being a police officer? Now, at this time in the job that I was traveling in, I was getting sort of tired of traveling because I'm traveling 4 weeks out of the month and living out of suitcases. And you understand that how people who travel become alcoholics because there's nothing to do. So you go to the bar, you sit down, you ingest all this bad behavior. So when he asked me this question, and he sold it to me. He's like, "Yeah, you have a pension, you have benefits." This was back in the day when they used to pay our benefits, when we had free benefits.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, well, we had it until Chris Christie took it away, which I'll never forgive him for. So it sounded like a good gig. It sounded like a steady gig. Now, in New Jersey, police work is ultra competitive because the salaries are high. Back then, salaries are high. You're talking 2001 salaries. I think top salary was $62,000, which was a decent amount of money. You knew you were never going to get rich, but you knew you were going to be okay. And I was tired of traveling. I said, all right, let me give it a shot. It wasn't a calling. It wasn't, oh my God, I got to be a cop. I didn't take thousands of tests. The only other test, my brother took a bunch of tests, right? He wanted to become a cop. And the only other test that I ever took, I applied to take the New Jersey State Police test. Now, I don't have any tickets. I never got arrested. I don't have any tickets. I was always able to get away with everything. I don't even have a parking ticket. And and I have multiple degrees. They write back and say, you don't fit our criteria to take the test. I'm like, okay. Well, at the time, they needed some diversity, and I wasn't diverse enough for it. I didn't care. I was like, all right, whatever, it doesn't matter. So now I go in there and I take this test. And in New Jersey, there's two different types of police departments. There's civil service and there's chiefs. This was a chiefs. Chiefs is basically you take a basic IQ test, and if they like you, you're in. Civil service, you got to get on a list.
The whole process,
yeah.
Okay.
You got to get on a list. If you're vet, you get veterans preference, all that stuff. And I could have done either way because we weren't in an active war, so there wasn't a whole lot of veterans applying at the time. So I did very well on the test. My one gift is I've always been somewhat intelligent. I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I have a little bit of common sense. And I did very well, and I got hired. First test really I ever took. And then I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's get this done. I show up first day to the police academy in August of 2001, and the drill, I knew nothing about police work. I knew nothing. The drill goes, he looks at the list and he goes, Donaldson, you don't belong here. I was like, all right. And I turn around and I start going home. He goes, no, park over there. So I get in there, but here's the great thing. I got into the police academy and I was in decent shape. I wasn't in as good a shape as I thought I was in. Being strong does not always equate to being a good academy cadet. But I fit. All right, the discipline, the structure, how it was laid out just turned my mind around.
It's what you needed.
Yeah, it's what I needed.
Yeah.
Right. It clamped me down and I loved it. Until, one day after PT, we're sitting in class, we're getting ready for instruction, and our captain comes in. Now, let me paint the picture of this captain. If you watch an episode of Hill Street Blues from the 80s with the cops with the mustache, white hair, he was still in his PT gear. Listen, I could see his balls. The short shorts with the high knee socks with the stripes. He was that guy. Great guy, though.
It's coming back. That's the crazy thing. It's coming back.
It's that great guy, but he was just that guy. He comes walking in. He's got a look of concern on his face, and he tells the class as we're getting ready for instruction, plane just hit the World Trade Center. And listen, nobody really batted an eye when we first heard this. It was about 9-something in the morning. The only one that really looked concerned is there was a girl off to the right to me. She was a transit cop, and her dad worked in the World Trade Center, worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. And a little bit of concern, but not overly concerned. You got to remember that planes hit those buildings all the time. That was not uncommon for a plane to run into the building. You can look this up. Planes have run into the Empire State Building. Corey Liddell from the New York Yankees flew a Cessna into a plane. It wasn't a big deal. So we go on, we continue, we sit down, we get ready for instruction until he comes in about 20 minutes later. Plane just hit the other World Trade Center. Now the look of concern sort of just fell over everybody. Now, you got to remember, when I went in there for the initial interview of this job, not knowing too much about police work, one of the questions that I asked the police chief, I was like, you ever lost anybody in the line of duty? And you saw that look of like almost aggravation on his face. No, we don't. No. It's a small little suburban town. He's like, no, that's not this place. I said, okay. Because again, it wasn't a calling. Because if you would have said yes, maybe my life would have turned out a little different.
Yeah, you're like, oh.
Yeah, listen,
Is it worth it for me?
I'm not going to go, take care of oil rigs after a war in the Middle East. I'm not that civic minded. So when he came in there and he said the second plane hit, now the atmosphere changed. I can remember it to this day. It's just that, like, everybody just sort of quieted down. The woman off to the right of me, her name was Kristen. The look of concern fell over her face. They let her go start making phone calls, try to find her dad. She can't get in touch with him. And we all get recalled to our departments. Where my academy was, I had to drive past this place called Eagle Rock Reservation in West Orange, where you can see the New York City skyline. I can see the smoke just billowing up from both World Trade Centers. And I had just been there. I was there for some event a year before. Stayed in the World Trade Center 7, which was the Marriott, and ate dinner at the Windows of the World on top. So I was just there. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. It was a lot of anxiety in me. I go back to my police department. I'm only a month into the academy, and we had some high value targets. Like we had ADP, ADP, which did payroll, right? But it controlled like 70% of the world's payroll. So if that was a high value target, because if you take out the payroll, people can't get paid. All of a sudden, you just cripple the system. So the chief says to the lieutenant, go up and get him his weapon. I haven't qualified yet.
So you're a month in, you get recalled, and it's like, hey, showtime.
Showtime. Month in, to a place where I was concerned if they lost an officer. Now all of a sudden, we don't know whether we're at war. But the fact that the lieutenant walked me up to the armory, gave me my weapon, it was a Smith & Wesson SW40. It's kind of like a Glock knockoff, hammerless type of thing. Gave me my rounds, gave me my magazines, and he says, don't shoot anybody, kid. But it speaks to the mindset of the time, right? We had no idea what was going on. We didn't know if we were at war. We didn't know if more planes were coming down. We had no idea. We didn't have any more information. Actually, the general public probably had more information because they're watching the news all the time. And I go out and stand post right by this ADP. And I found out what police work was that day. Like where I didn't know before, I found exactly what police work was all about. Police work is being that rock, that steady thing that people don't, when people have no idea what to do, they're going to go to a cop and they're going to like, what do I do? And you don't know what to do, but you have to fake it until you make it. You have to pretend that you know what to do. And you have to assure them, say, hey, well, listen, we don't have any information. It's coming out really fast. We kind of don't know. And you just had to sort of be a little bit of a reassuring voice to them. And so that's what police work is, right? You show up at a call that's going haywire. You have to sort of control the situation, even though you may not know what to do, but you have to figure it out quick.
That's what I tell people. That's what you get. That's what your job is: problem solving, immediate problem solving. Like I always tell people, like, we don't know everything, we don't know it all, but it's our job to figure it out as best as we can. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because you get to not so serious calls. It's like, hey, I got this raccoon in my attic and it burned a hole and now there's water everywhere. Like, what should I do?
Funniest calls in the world.
Yeah, and you're like, bro, you called the police. Like, why don't you call pest control or
call a plumber
or something? Like, but like, it goes to show you if you embody that, if you lean into that, people go to the police when they don't know what else to do. Mm-hmm. And I've learned it. Like, people join the police force and they're like, I'm gonna fight crime. Nah, bro, you're gonna field calls left and right. That's the majority of what we do, because we're that layer of like, oh, I don't know, call 911.
We're the first. There's a reason we call us first responders. We're the first layer of defense, and when their world is hitting the fan. All right, so there's a statistic that's out there where the average citizen will see anywhere from 2 to 4 critical incidents throughout their life. Pretty much the worst day of their life. Police officers throughout a 20-year career will see upwards of 800. Okay, think about that. So for people who aren't law enforcement that are watching this, think about the worst day of your life. Multiply it by 400, by 200, And that's the life of a police officer. So when you don't know what to do, police officers see that day after day, and it weighs on them, and it weighs on them. And while they can't show it because they have to recover and go to the next call, they don't have time to sit in their own little pity party. Now they learn how to suppress all those feelings, suppress that anxiety. And then it translates into their home life because they bring that home with them, and things at home, they just learn how to suppress all that stuff. It's a very unhealthy attitude. So I'm out there and I'm standing post and I'm finding what police work is, and the chaos is sort of all around us. I learned something. I have an uncle who was one of my grandfather's last surviving brothers. He was prisoner of war in Germany for 27 months. And he saw the worst of the worst. You know, he was in Stali 2B, 3B, 7A. I know where he was, and I know what he did. He ate cat, you know, he did everything he could to survive, tried to escape 5 times. So I sort of leaned on him. And I remember after 9/11, I go to him and I was like almost despondent. I go, I don't know where to go from here. I don't know where the country's going to go from here. And he looks at me and he goes, Kevin, you got to understand, you cannot show fear. You cannot be afraid. You must force yourself to be unafraid, because if you're afraid, they win. And I was like, wow. And it just gave me a little bit of hope, right? So I went back to the academy, and they shortened the academy because they needed us. So I get out of the academy and I start my police career. And I loved it. Like because I found out real early on what police work was, so I knew how to approach the job. I wasn't a tough guy. I wasn't that heavy-handed guy. I wasn't looking to make a name for myself. I was looking to make a difference. Okay, there's a big difference. I don't want to make a name. I want to make a difference. And that's how I approached my police career. So while I've done some crazy stuff throughout my career, I couldn't tell you much. You know, I chased cars and did all that stuff, and, you know, burglaries and everything you can imagine. It was the humanitarian calls, the ones that I remember the most. It was showing up when people are lost. People don't know what to do, and they don't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, I tend to find myself thinking about that more than the other. You know, like, you know, being at a cafe shop and a little kid like, we're doing homework, and I'm talking with them. They're like, oh, we wanted a snack and we couldn't get it. Like, that's the stories I find myself thinking about. Like, that kid's smiling because I bought him a chocolate chip cookie.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, to me, it's like, oh man, here, dude, like I'll feed anybody who needs, especially kids. You know, like, you're here, you're doing homework, and you're hungry. I got you.
You invested in that kid's future too,
and you know,
and in
like,
your future too, because down the road, let's say you say, get away from me, kid. I don't have any money, whatever it is, and you didn't buy it. Well, fuck the police. You know?
Yeah, and that wasn't even why I was doing. I'm just like, okay, you know, and then, you know, you see that kid. We walk to schools where we're at. See that kid. The kid comes up, hey, how you doing? Like, hugs me. I'm like, oh,
you're his buddy now, right?
And it's like when I say make a difference, that's where it matters, right? You're not gonna end domestic disturbances. You're not gonna end burglaries. You're not gonna end murders. Those are things, unfortunately, that are gonna happen, right? But you're gonna change a life one call at a time.
Correct.
Doesn't matter how big, how small the call. You connecting with someone and being that assurance, that reassurance for them, that security, that safety blanket. That's what is going to resonate with your career. Dude, there'll be calls where people will be like, I'm not talking to nobody. I'm only talking to Lopez. I show up like, what are you doing, bro? It's like, oh, no, I'm not coming out unless you're here. I'm here. Like, but because some point in time, I've built some sort of connection.
So there's 2 calls that stick out in my career. You know, aside from all the arrests and stuff like that, there's 2 calls. Okay, first call, we go to a call of a suicidal female. And she's in her bedroom. She lived with her mother, and her mother calls us, and she's got a serrated steak knife. She has her 4-year-old son sitting next to her, and she's just despondent. She's having a bad day. And I go in there, and at the time when I was working, I think it was like the 21-foot rule. I know it's expanded now, where you don't go within 21 feet of a person with a knife because you won't have time to draw and shoot. Whatever it was, listen, I've obviously never been a real big rule follower. This woman was having a bad day. The threat was very low, so I just sat down on the bed about 2-3 feet away from her. And her son, whose name was Mason, sort of just like cuddling up next to her. He's scared for his mom. You could tell the kid's frightened. And he's certainly frightened of me because I was a uniform guy, right? So my stuff was pressed. My pants. This isn't like today's police, and it annoys the hell out of me with the tack vests, and everybody just stands there like this. Oh my God, it drives me up a wall because I'm like, I'll punch you in the face 5 times before you get your hands out of your vest. Like tactically is the worst possible thing ever. But if you're squared away, if you're in shape, you already overcome one obstacle with a police officer. You have your command presence when it comes to that. I was always very big into that. But with a little kid, that actually doesn't work real well. So he sees this guy that, every shiny stuff. He's got a gun. I got my flashlight on there. I got everything on my bat belt. And he doesn't know what to do. He sort of doesn't know what to make of it. And he's sort of real close to his mother. And I'm just talking to her. Listen, this is nothing that we can't try to figure out right here, right now. Okay? This does not have to end this way. As the conversation goes on, you see the kid and he's just sort of pointing to stuff. He's not talking. He's just pointing to stuff. And I'm engaging with him. I'm like, oh, that's my badge, and this is a state seal in New Jersey, and this is what's called collar brass. It says RPD on it, and just going through everything. But you watch this kid who was very fearful of me sitting down start to move a little closer to me, until he's sort of sitting right next to me, and we're going through all this stuff. And guess what? The mother saw that connection with her son, and for whatever reason, she drops the knife. And I said, when we went and got her help. Call's over, and I don't really think about it again. Well, fast forward 10 years, I'm in a supermarket and I'm in civilian clothes. So, what happens when you're in civilian clothes and somebody calls your name?
Oh, you're like,
oh, shit.
How do you know me?
Oh, shit. So I hear somebody behind me going, Officer Kevin. Turn around, it's like a 15-year-old boy. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And he goes, you're Officer Kevin. And I said, yeah, nice. What's up? He goes, well, my name's Mason. And I don't know whether you remember me or not, but there was one time you showed up in my house and you helped my mother, and she's better now. And I just want to thank you. And the guy gives me a hug. That brings tears to my eyes, because that small act of kindness, that random act of kindness. Yes, I was doing my job, but I was also concerned. I do have humanity in me, and this woman was in distress, and I've been there before. No greater gift in the world. I don't care about the ribbons. I couldn't tell you how many life-saving awards. I don't care. I couldn't tell you how many I have, but I'll tell you every detail of that call. The second call was you got to remember, this is a different time. There's a guy who was born a woman, wanted to be a man. All right, and this guy looked like the state wrestling champ in 1978. Bald, beard, always walked around without a shirt, but was born a woman. You could see the scars where removed the breasts. But mentally unstable. Back then, you had to go through multiple psychological exams in order to get the full surgery done. And his name was Greg. Greg was always combative, and Greg was short and stout, pot belly. Like I said, quintessential wrestler's body. So we had a lieutenant, same lieutenant who gave me my gun, who was very brash. And he would go in there, he's like, what are you doing? Stop. And there's testosterone tubes with the gel everywhere. And I would just sit down there and talk to Greg, and Greg would say some crazy shit. Bot bugs are flying through the walls. But you saw his posture, right? You read his body language. He's sitting there clenching his fists. He's sitting on the table. He just looks like he's ready to pounce. And I would just sit there and listen to him. I wasn't judging him. I wasn't saying what he was saying was off the wall, even though it was. He just needed somebody to listen to. And every call thereafter that we had with this guy, I was called in to do it because I was the only one to calm him down. I said, it's not magic. It's not like I'm not using some sort of Jedi mind trick. All I'm doing is listening to this guy. That's what we're supposed to do, right?
Take the extra time.
So all that stuff, the police career, it all boils down to those 2 calls. And that's what it does.
Yeah, sometimes I get some flack sometimes. People are like, wow, dude, why are we taking your time here? It's like, what else can I be doing? There's no pending calls. There's no nothing. So I'm going to take the time to try to develop this connection here and not make this situation worse, right? Because you say I was just doing my job. No, because you could easily go in there, what they say, use your taser, right? Tase the female, get her through. We call them 302s, right? Give her involuntarily committed. Mm-hmm. That little kid sees that quote unquote violence, that aggression, because that's not a, especially if someone doesn't want to go and you have to make them go, that's not a good process. Usually it ends up a little looking scary.
Later on in my life, I was on the other side of that. And I got a whole different perspective on that, being involuntarily committed.
Well, we're going to have to hear about that.
Oh,
but it's doing your job, right? That's doing your job. Situation is resolved, quote unquote, air quotes for my listeners. That boy, Mason, doesn't have the same view of you. Maybe has an opposite view, grows up with that sort of trauma, seeing how the police treated his mother who needed help, despising law enforcement, going a different path. Like, who knows how that could have gone? But doing your job and then doing your job appropriately or going effectively. Those are two different things, because you can show up and do your job, right? Someone speeds, you stop them, give them a ticket, cut them off, cut them away. What did you solve? Right? I like to have hey, well, and I love it when people are like, hey man, yeah, I was speeding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, cool. All right. Well, obviously, you know. So I did my job. If everything comes back, you'll get a warning. I tell them right off rip.
I used to do something different.
And you see them, they go,
yep. They calm down. I used to do something different. I used to do a little game of chance. When I knew I was giving somebody a warning, I used to take out a coin from my pocket. Heads, you get a ticket. Tails, you don't. And you'd watch their, whatever they called, it was that. I would never show them it. Whatever they called heads, it was always heads. But that's just me having fun.
Yeah, and it's like you gotta have, like, we're human. We're human, right? And like I hate that some people take this job too seriously. And I get it. It's a serious job. But life is crazy.
There's enough times in this job where you have to be serious. But there are a lot of times when you don't have to be so serious and you can actually have a little fun, because the joy you have in having a little bit of fun will resonate with other people, and all of a sudden their guard gets dropped.
Yeah. Like, one thing I like to do, I'm probably going to get shit for this, but maybe I don't tell them they're getting a warning immediately. I go up, I'm like, hey, good news, bad news. They're like, what's the bad news? I'm like, bad news is it's supposed to rain later, so just make sure you're careful. Good news is you're good to go. And they're like, you can just you immediately see them like sigh of relief. They're laughing, I'm laughing, and they go about their way. Or when someone's like tense, right? I'm like, you ever been pulled over before? No. I'm like, man, are you scared? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, why? I'm just gonna have a conversation with you, be good to go. They're sitting there looking at me. I'm like, what do you got going on today? Well, I'm like, anything fun? Anything? Yeah. And I try to like break that guard, right? Have that conversation. And I'm like, all right, well, you're good to go. I'm like, well, you're not gonna. Now everything came back good. Everything's good. I mean, do you want me to? Like, is there something I should know about? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, now you're making it weird. Like, and I try to like just be light about it.
I take that one step further and I take it into my podcast life, right? So in the beginning of my podcast, I always take a question from my audience. I do a social media question. People don't understand the reason why I do the social media question. Because when somebody's coming in and talk about their podcast, they're there to talk about their life, what they went through, whatever it may be. When I get that social media question, they're not prepped, they don't know what it is, and it gets them out of their own head. Same way you just did it, right? Same exact way. It gets them out of their own head for just a moment. And then by the time they're ready to start talking about themselves, after that social media question has been answered by both of us, you see them just like, they're like, oh, okay, this is what this is. There are no cameras. There's just two microphones here, and we're having a conversation. They forget that this is here. I always tell people, if I don't make you forget this is in front of you within 5 minutes, I did not do my job, right? And that's what you did with that stop. If you don't remove that badge from your chest within the first minute, they're going to constantly focus on it, and they're going to be anxious, and that also leads to escalation and things like that.
Especially with the DUI patrol, we do those like the fixed patrol, or the, what do they call them? DUI checkpoints. Yeah. Right? Like, you get I'm Officer so-and-so with the DUI task force, or have you had anything to drink tonight, right? Like, our goal is to what? And I get it. However you feel about these checkpoints, right? It's overtime for me, okay? I'm going to be honest. It's overtime for me. It's a good time for me to talk to people. That's the way I look at it, right? You come in through the line, I'm like, hey, what's your favorite color? Blue? I look at my partner, hey, that's 2 blues for tonight. I was like, man, we're trying to see how, making sure everyone's safe. Anything fun playing tonight? No, I'm just going home. In having that conversation, I can tell if you're impaired. I can look into your eyes. I can smell any odor coming out. I'm accomplishing the mission without being a douchebag about it.
You're humanizing it.
Humanizing it, you know. And I'm talking with them, and then I'm like, oh, well, you're good to go. And they're like, oh, that's all. I'm like, yeah, that's all. Next person comes, they have their ID. I don't need that. Just talking with folks, make sure everything's okay. Anything fun planned tonight? Oh, we just watched a Marvel movie. Oh, how was it? Oh, it was good. You know, you're talking, just taking 10 to 15 seconds to kind of establish that, right? But I'm not doing, and you hear the line before and after, oh, I'm Officer so-and-so. I'm like, dude, like lighten up a little bit. This situation already sucks. Like, make the best of it. Like, have people come through, make them laugh. You know, that's what I like to do. That mental friction, breaking it.
Well, you're there to connect, right? You're there to connect with people. You don't connect to people by being an authoritative figure. You just don't. You know?
Yeah, it's different times. And as you mentioned with social media, I like to I'll click everything, I'll keep everything going, and I'll just start talking with them randomly. You know, because people come here and they're like, I'm here for the podcast. I'm here to talk about my book, or I'm to talk about my song, or talk about my next fight, right? And then you're like, yeah, dude, I was at this restaurant the other day and this happened, and they're like, oh yeah, and I'm like, oh, what? Like you kind of get the conversation going completely randomly.
That's exactly my thing. Like, don't worry about it. We'll get to that stuff.
Yeah, like that's here. We have time.
That stuff.
And then eventually, we're talking, we're going through, and by the end, they're like, man, I forgot I was on a podcast. I mean, that's the point.
That's the point. And before you know it, an hour's gone, 2 hours gone, and they're like, wow, that was fast. And I love that. Like, that's the best compliment when it comes to these things. It's like, oh, wow, I went fast. Well, yeah, it's supposed to be fast because it's not supposed to feel like work. When you have to do hard labor for an hour, you know what an hour feels like. This is not hard labor. This is pretty, we're in a nice place. We're in air conditioning, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, you feel the minutes go by when you're doing manual labor with this. It's like, dude, we're 2 hours in.
It's nothing.
What was the stem of starting the Suffering podcast? You mentioned that. Like, I have my reason for starting this. Yours is very, very intentional, very specific with what you're doing.
I have to go back to my police career. As my police career, I'm 13 years in, and I had an event that happened to me. It was the reason I had to step away and I had to retire. On July 10th, 2013, we had you have your frequent flyers, and we had a frequent flyer in town. Well, it wasn't a frequent flyer, but we knew about it because there was a resident in town in one of our townhouse complexes. The ex-boyfriend who lived in Florida. His name was Anthony Vocatoro, and I say his name very purposely. Everybody's like, well, you shouldn't say his name. I'm like, screw it, I'm going to say his name. He emailed a picture to his ex-girlfriend with a Glock 9mm to his head. So this woman, very fearful, she files for a temporary restraining order. It's granted, but it's never served. So they don't know where this guy is. He's in the wind. Sent out, and we had these tracks messages, which is sent out to all the departments. I don't know whether you get them here, or that's the way it was back then. So we knew this address, and I made the cardinal mistake. We were working a pitman schedule. We were working 12-hour shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's a Wednesday. There's nothing going on, and I make the cardinal mistake as a police officer. I say the worst word ever. Do you know what it is?
It's quiet.
There you go. It's common knowledge, and I pull up next to my partner. We do the car 69, right? We know what the car 69 is. Window to window, drinking coffee. And I remember looking at him. New Jersey had a lot of budget cuts, so we had to sit the desk in 4-hour blocks. My block was about to come up, and on a Wednesday night when nothing's going on, you pretty much put the town to bed. It's about 10:45. I go just tug on doors, make sure the plazas are locked up, and that's what we did. I pull up next to him. I'm like, man, it is so quiet. I wish we just get an alarm, something to get me out of the car. And then I leave and I go and I pull in this little lot, and radio cracks. Your life changes and the radio cracks. Start heading to this address, same address that we knew about that was having these ongoing domestic issues. Unknown emergency, open 911. So what the victim did was called 911 through the phone on the ground so we would have a response. I turn around real quick, put my lights on, no sirens. It's late at night, so there's no cars on the road. I'm doing about 70 miles an hour to this place. And we're going car to car. My partner is right behind me. We're going car to car, just trying to figure out a plan when we get there, what we're going to do. And I was too complacent. I'm going to tell you right now, I was too complacent. I pull up in front of the residence. And this is a different time. My cell phone is sitting in my duty bag. I never carried my cell phone with me on jobs. I can still tell you what the cell phone was. It was an LG. You flipped it up with the keyboard so you could text.
Glide.
It was, and it wasn't a Glide. It was one of my favorite phones. It was nice, but it's sitting in my duty bag. We go up to the door and we can hear arguing through the door. And so what we do, we take out our flashlight. You know that they were stingers, not like the cool shit you got here. And you knock on the door because it makes a very distinct sound. It's kind of like when you're tapping on glass when two people are screwing around.
It's the the Magnum light.
Put your clothes on type of tap. So I tap and all you hear on the other side of the door, aside from the arguing, is this guy saying, "Don't come in here, don't come in here," and he's yelling it, and you can tell it. There's something aggressive going on. We have a 911. And, you know, for those who don't know, 911 was set up that anytime 911 is dialed, whether it was a misdial, dialed an error, or a real emergency, you had to show up. So we're there, and we have to see this person who called 911. So don't come in here, don't come in here. A lieutenant shows up, and he's sort of standing back. My partner and I just come up with this plan. I'm like, all right, well, we got to get in there. I go get my Halligan bar from my trunk, which is like a fireman's crowbar. I'm going to try to breach the door, and he's standing in the back because it's a townhouse and it's sandwiched, so there's only 3 egresses. There's the back sliding door, there's the front door, and there's the garage. The lieutenant was sort of looking back to see if the garage door opened, which is easy to see, and I'm in the front, my partner's in the back. On a signal, I start whacking the lock with the Halligan bar. You know, I'm like sledging it to get a wedge in there so I can pop it. People... I've been asked this question before, like, why didn't you kick in the door? And I was like, because it ain't fucking 1970 and it's not a closet door. It's a steel door. I'm going to break my leg. You let rookies do that.
Well, you have the tool.
Right.
Yeah, like use the tool.
So I start slamming the door. Now, what I don't see on the other side of this door, because there's no window, is Anthony Vocatoro is pointing his gun at the door. First person through the door is going to get it. Once he realized the game's over, he turns his gun to the woman who's seated on the ground, and he's going to shoot her in the head. My partner opens fire with him. He preserves life. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, and they get into a gun battle. So while I hit it, I hear pop, 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 pop. I hear 4 quick shots. And you sort of drop everything and like, shit, what the hell was that? You retreat a little bit, and if you saw the area, there's just this little porch that I'm on, real little tiny porch, maybe 1 chair can fit on there, and there's a window, and I'm ducked down behind the window, trying to figure out what the hell's going on, but I'm worried about my partner in the back. I don't know what's going on.
You're in the front.
Right.
And you hear this and your partner's in the back. So you're not sure if it was just your partner, if it was Anthony, if it was an exchange. You just hear this gunfire.
I can't see anything. I am flying blind. And I'm trying to, you don't want to bring attention. You don't know if it's still an active gun battle. So I sort of retreat off the back, and we always ran on minimum manpower at midnight. So surrounding towns are starting to show up, and I start running around the back. As I go around the back, other officer comes with us, and the lieutenant who's in the front, who is absolutely worthless, and I'll explain that in just a moment.
No shame.
I don't. I have no shame because I love it. I use this term frequently when I go out and speak, and I say he was as worthless as male nipples. All right, so he will forever be known in my mind as male nipples.
I don't mean to laugh.
Listen, they're fun to look at, but that's about it. So I go around the back. I see my partner. I find out what happened. I find out exactly what I just told you. There's 3 of us there, and we come up with this plan. We're going to go up on this little privacy deck. You know, the 4-foot slat walls. It's about 9 by 9. It's very small. And I'm looking at this deck. The stairs are off to the left, and I'm like, okay, if I get to the right, I can see everything. I can see through the sliding glass door. I see the bullet holes. I can see the victim. The victim is seated up against the wall with her knees to the chest, obvious distress. I cannot see Anthony Vocatoro. I have no idea where he is. Now, we're not quiet when we go up there. I get off to the left, and the best cover I could find was patio furniture, metal patio furniture, so it's not the best cover in the world. But I'm sitting there, and I'm looking. I got my gun drawn. And the funny thing is we weren't quiet going up there, but I didn't notice this at the time. And in retrospect, I did. The victim is looking off more to the right of the sliding glass door. And I didn't put two and two together. She's not looking at us coming on the door. She's looking at that. So our plan was we were going to breach the door. We're going to throw something through the door, and we're going to go get her. On the count of three, my partner picks up one of the metal chairs, throws it through the door, glass explodes, and I see this big giant flash. Brightest thing I ever seen in my life. I feel heat just billow on my face. I smell smoke. I feel gunpowder. You know that feeling when you're at the range and gunpowder blows back in your face?
Yeah, very thick.
It's like having somebody throw sand in your face. Anthony Vocatoro was standing right to the left of the sliding glass door. And as soon as we threw the chair through there, pulls his gun around and he shoots. The bullet came so close to my ear that it actually wiggled my ear. I could hear it. It went right past my ear. I go down. I hit the deck. And I'm like, holy shit. But the funny thing is, so you never know what kind of person you are. You never know how you're going to react in certain situations, because there are certain people in this life that when danger hits, they're going to run away from that fire. And then there's certain people that are going to run towards the fire. That's how people are built. And you see them show up in times of chaos. I'm down and I'm lucid. There's no panic. There's no fear. I am thinking as clearly as I ever thought in my life. I'm thinking so clearly. So it's day before key fobs. We used to take our key ring and put it on our antenna, right? As I hit the ground, my keys popped off, and I'm like, huh. I remember looking over. I'm like, oh, there's my keys. Grab my keys, put them back on my antenna, and now I start thinking about what's going on. The two other officers who are on the deck with me, they retreat, because the stairs are right there. I'm trapped. They retreat. They get right behind the slat wall. The lieutenant, male nipples, he actually runs and goes and calls the chief, because he was so far up the chief's ass that, if the chief ever stopped, they'd have to remove his head from his ass. And he kind of left me for dead.
Wild.
He left me for dead. And that's why it's hard to forgive him. He's got to deal with his own little demons on this particular call. These guys are behind the thing. And I hear them shouting out saying, "You shot? Are you shot?" And I said, "I don't know. Because I look down and I see blood everywhere." And I'm like, I just see blood and my shoulder hurts. As I'm laying there, I'm like, all right, well, I'm trapped. I'm assessing the situation very slowly, very calmly. I can't get out, because if I crawl out, like, regardless of what you see, I know I got a swimmer's body, but I don't move very fast. There's no way I can get out without him having a clear shot on a place where my vest doesn't cover, right on the side. So I'm trapped.
So you go in, or you said he turned the
he just
fire.
wrapped his hand around. He wasn't shooting so much at me as at a cop. Okay. He was just trying to volley around. But now I'm stuck in a situation where if I try to crawl out, I'm dead. He shot at police twice, so why would I think he wouldn't shoot at them again? I'm in a bad spot. I'm trapped, and I'm stuck. And at home at this time, I have a 3-year-old, and I have an 8-month-old. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and I start thinking about my family. I start thinking about my wife. I start thinking about my kids. The 3-year-old's going to know me, because I'm pretty much preparing myself to die. The 3-year-old is absolutely going to remember me. But he's going to have visions. He's going to have little pops here and there. I got a picture of him sitting on my lap in the police car wearing my hat, and that's what he's going to remember. The 8-month-old, he's not going to remember. My poor wife is going to have to raise these kids all alone, and this is the things that are going through my head. I make my peace with the Lord, and I said, okay, well, I'm ready. But I'll tell you what, if I'm going to die, you're coming with me. So I get in a shooting position. And this is all happening very fast,
It's crazy how time
slows
down when you're involved in critical incidents like that.
It was just the most, I can tell you everything that was linear. It was just linear, the way that I was thinking about things, and the thought of home and all that stuff. And even when I made my peace and I was ready to go, I get my weapon out, I get in that prone position, I'm ready to rock and roll. And I'm stuck there for like 2 minutes. I'm just waiting for him to pull his head out. Once his head comes out, he's done. Like I know right about where he is. I know right where his head's going to pop out, and I'm just waiting for it. Now, the two officers never left the rear of the deck. They were there under cover. One of them held cover on the stairs while the other one grabbed the back of my duty rig and assisted me off. And I never crawled so fast in my life. I get off and I do one of these, am I shot? And I realized where I wasn't shot. Where the blood was coming from is when I went down, all the glass that was on the deck just got embedded into my arm, and it tore my forearms to shreds. It was crazy, but I'm grateful. And then I turn because the victim's still in there, and I watched Anthony. He runs upstairs, and there was like a breezeway upstairs where you could see him go to the side and sort of sit down, and the victim just sort of like a thief in the night, just stands up, walks out, goes out the garage to freedom. Now, I'm calling over the radio, victim's coming out, hold your fire, victim's coming out, and they get her out and she's safe. Now, our job is done, right? Our job is done other than holding perimeter, making sure he doesn't hurt anybody else, but there's nobody in the residence, so he could stay in there for 10 years. I don't care.
Yeah, it's not your job to now rush in because
there's no danger. Yeah. There's no immediate threat to anybody. So we hold perimeter in July. My arms are torn up. It's like 85, 90 degrees with a lot of humidity, and it's stinging. And we hold perimeter. I'm right behind. There's a little small wooded area, and we're in there waiting for him, fully expecting him to come running out, suicide by cop. Obviously he's got a death wish. So we fully expected that, but for 2 hours it didn't happen. The state police teams unit, which is their version of the SWAT, they show up. They actually drive a vehicle in the back between the wall and us and walk us out, and they take over the situation. We did our job. We did great. I find the lieutenant. I'm like, where the hell were you when I was calling you? Because he wasn't answering. He's like, I was on the phone with the chief. And I'm like, dude, it's an active gun battle.
Right there's the time.
Yeah. You're going to call the chief? He'll find out. So I'm forced to go to the hospital. I don't want to go to the hospital. I got to get my arms taken care of. I don't have my cell phone. My car's still running in front of the residence. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we all know the girlfriends, wives, spouses. They all talk to each other. They're all in group texts. And I was afraid it's 12:30, 12:45. And I'm afraid my wife's going to hear it from another woman, or they're going to be on the group text saying, hey, there was a shooting in Roseland tonight. Is your husband working?
And she can't get a hold of you.
And she can't get a hold of me. So it's worst case scenario. And that's the things that are running through my head. So one of the EMTs in the ambulance, I grab his cell phone. And I said, do you mind if I use this? And she's the one number I know off the top of my head. I don't know anybody else's number, but I know hers. I call it up. Now imagine this, your wife, girlfriend sitting at home, gets a call from an unknown number at 12:30 at night. This is not a good sign. I said, hon, it's me. I just want to let you know I was in a shooting. I'm not shot. I'm okay. I have to go to the hospital because I have to get glass removed from my arm. I'll be home as soon as I can. Click. Oh, by the way, have sweet dreams. Go back to sleep.
Yeah, not sleeping for a while.
Yeah. So I'm still not sure if that was the right thing to do, but it was the only thing I could think of to do at the time. I created a lot of anxiety in her life. And
the anxiety was going to come because of the situation.
It would have been better if I just showed up and say, hey, I had a crazy night. But I was afraid. I was afraid of her finding out from somebody other than me. So I go to the hospital, and they pick this glass out of my arm, and they can't get it all. So they tell me to come back Monday. I go
spend the weekend.
Yeah. So it's very early Thursday morning. I get discharged. I'm home at like 5 o'clock, but my adrenaline's running. I go out for a run. That doesn't do it. I walk my dog. That doesn't do it. I got to get some sleep. I try to lay down for about an hour or two. It doesn't work. And I wake up to like 50 phone calls on my phone. What happened? Try to get back to as many people as you can. But that morning I hugged my wife and hugged my kids tighter than I've ever hugged them in my entire life. So that night, my wife is obviously overjoyed. She might not be so overjoyed now, but she was overjoyed that night that I came home. And we're going to have a date night. Just a little, her and I are going to go out, get something to eat, go watch a movie. And you know, so the devil comes over and my mother-in-law comes over to watch my kids.
You about to get me shot.
She comes over to watch the kids, and we go out, we get something to eat, and we go watch a movie. This is back when Seth Rogen used to be funny, and he made a movie called This Is the End, where the concept of it is the world ends.
Oh yeah.
And certain people get sucked up to heaven, and then certain people stay on earth, which becomes hell. But the moment when people get sucked up, there's this bright flash and this very loud noise. And I'm in a theater with surround sound, and it just, as soon as it happened, my chest started pounding, unlike anything I've ever felt in my life. I start just pouring sweat. I can't breathe. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I like, what is going on with me? I kind of look over at my wife. I don't really alert her, because remember, she didn't sign up for this job. I did. I don't want to alert her. She's been through enough. I say, you know what? We're good actors. We're good liars. I said, my stomach's not feeling well. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I go out into the hallway, and I have what I know now as a full-blown panic attack. Like, I just lost my shit. I'm sitting there. I'm trying to catch my breath. Everything I've ever heard of, breathing techniques, all that shit. I'm trying just to bring myself down. And now I know my wife's in there, and I don't want to take too long in the little hallway. Thank God nobody was there. So I get up, and I try to tough it out and try to get my bearings. I try to pull the door, but the door just, like, for some reason won't open. It's like it's too heavy. I can't do it because I can still hear the booms from the sound system in the theater. So I'm out there for like 15 minutes. And, you know, we think our spouses are stupid, that they don't know when we're hurting, but they know. My wife comes out like 15 minutes. She goes, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, I ate something wrong. My stomach's not doing so good." She takes a little bit of pity on me. And because she knew, I'm positive.
She lets you believe that.
Yeah. And she says, you know what, this movie sucks. And she's right, it did suck, okay? This movie sucks, let's go home. So I go home that night, and that night, I have like the worst nightmare ever. It's like these high anxiety-induced dreams where, you know, you're on a hot call and you pull your weapon out and the magazine drops and all the bullets go everywhere.
You have those too?
Oh, they're awful. Do you ever have one where
you're pressing it, nothing happens?
Nothing happens. And you're doing, even in your dream, you're doing it wrong because you're moving your hand.
Yeah.
You know, you're gripping, you're ripping it. And
dude, that's wild.
It was awful. It was awful. So I woke up, I used to wake up so wet that I would, first time I had it happen, I thought I pissed myself. Like I really thought I pissed myself. But I would have to do a uniform change because my stuff was just drenched. And subsequently, every single night, I would have a nightmare. Like, you know, I'd pull out my gun and a bang flag would come out like in the cartoons.
I just want to take a second to shout out a few companies who've believed in me. You know, these were one of our first official sponsors, so huge shout out. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Carbo Jewelers, established in 1997 on the values of honesty and integrity. Whether you're searching for the perfect piece, need expert repair services, visit Carbo Jewelers in Newark's Ironbound District, where your jewelry is always in safe hands. This episode is also brought to you by Continental Jewelers, proudly serving Hudson County, New Jersey since 1964. Whether you're seeking a timeless piece or need expert repairs, they've got you covered. Visit Continental Jewelers, your trusted source for all things jewelry. You can find them on Instagram at Carbo Jewelers or online at carbojewelers.com. Lastly, big shout out to Carbo Trading. Besides coins, precious metals, and jewelry, if it could be traded and collected, he's probably got it. They can be found on Instagram at carbo.trading. You can find all of our sponsors out online on our sponsor page at therelentlessproject.com.
It was crazy.
You know where that stems from?
No.
I've had someone tell me. When you have dreams like that, it stems from you believing you were involved in something, obviously, a traumatic event. You believing you didn't do what was necessary, or you fell short of what you thought you should be doing in that moment.
Yeah, I never had anybody tell me that.
And I've been told that, you know, and there's a few events that pop in my mind. I'm like, I do beat myself up for that. You know, I thought I was over that. And it was in getting involved in you know, speaking with men like you and involving myself in these communities. where you have to get over that, essentially, right? It happened. You did what you did. The outcome, you're here, you won.
I guess you're probably right, because I never reconciled it in my head. I could have. And why didn't I fire?
Well,
Why,
the first thing you said was, Cardinals, I pulled up front. So like little things like that, we tell, like, they build and build and build, and then we have these dreams like this. Because I was having them too. Critical incident, someone's punching me, right? Or someone's attacking me, and I go to hit them, and it's like, yeah. And I'm like, what is going on? Why can't I do this? And someone pulls a gun on me, and I pull it back in slow motion, and I'm looking at them, and I press, and I'm like, why isn't this working? So I was having very similar dreams, and that's what I was told. So
they're horrible.
Yeah.
They're horrible. But I was also thrashing around. There was one time I don't know what the dream was. I don't remember, but I remember waking up, grabbing my wife's wrist, like I'm going to put handcuffs on her, you know? So I'm disturbing her. So I remove myself from the bedroom after about a week of just having these awful nightmares. I'm like, you know what? Let me have these nightmares alone. I'll deal with them alone. The one thing I started doing at this time is I started drinking heavily. I wasn't a big drinker. I would tie it on from time and time again, but I started drinking because it was the only thing that sort of calmed me a little bit. And, you know, I would drink tonight, maybe not tomorrow night. It became every night, and then it became during the day, and then it became in the morning. And so time goes on. There's a picture of me where I start losing myself. But prior to that, I go back to the doctors on a Monday. They told me initially when it happened, they said, you don't have to come in Thursday night. I was off the weekend. I'm like, cool, I got a 4-day weekend. This is beautiful, you know? I didn't think anything of it. And then I start having the nightmares. And then that weekend, we take the kids down to see my parents, kind of like a nice little away game, get me out of my own head. And I remember to drive down to South Jersey, and I'm like, I'm just thinking about it, right? I'm real quiet. My brother, who was also a cop, as soon as I show up, he's asking me tons of questions. I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk about it. I just really don't want to talk about it. On the way home, when it was time to leave, because I just didn't want to be there, my 3-year-old, he's got chocolate milk in his hand, and he spills it all over his car seat. You would have thought he burnt down the house the way I yelled at him. I just took off, boom, like a switch flipped. My wife, being a good mother, steps in front, takes the brunt for him. And, well, I don't care who I yell at, I'll yell at you. And I just yelled at her. We're going northbound back 2 hours to home on the Garden State Parkway, which is a major artery in New Jersey, 7 lanes at some point. She's begging me to pull over to the side of the road and let her, an 8-month-old, and a 3-year-old out on the side of the Garden State Parkway. That's how bad it was. Obviously, I never slowed down beyond 70, so it never happened. But I get home and I realize something's wrong. You know, I call something's really wrong. I call a cop helpline to try to get some. I know I got to go talk to somebody. I have to. I don't want to, but I had to. So that Monday, I go back into a doctor's office, and they're picking more glass. And I still, to this day, I got some glass in my left arm. They never were able to get it out. How it's too deep or something. It's like right here. Never got infected. It's still there. It's
Do you not do that? It's just like cutting himself as he's.
That's fine. It's in there for so long. It's part of me. I don't want to get rid of it. And the doctor's picking this stuff out. And I remember it was odd because I never had a doctor ask me this. She sort of looks at me and she says, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's just glass, man. It's going to be okay." He says, "That's not what I'm talking about. Are you okay?" Well, whatever she said to me, it just like broke me. I just broke down in the office. And I'm starting to change. I'm becoming a different person, you know. And obviously, she says, "Well, you're not going back to work," and I'm out now. So I'm out on comp and trying to figure this out. I'm seeing therapists. I'm seeing doctors. They medicate me, which is not a good thing for somebody with post-traumatic stress, because that's what this is, right? They put you on the protocols are a benzo and an antidepressant. I was on Lexapro and Klonopin. Well, here's the thing about Klonopin. You take a couple Klonopin and drink, which it clearly says don't do, you get drunk very fast on half the alcohol. So I'm like, all of a sudden I'm a cheap date. I'm getting drunk, twice as drunk on less money. Cool. But there's a photograph of me at the end of July. And my wife and I were somewhere, and somebody takes a picture of us, and you have this look on my face. I grew facial hair. My hair is growing long. And it's like I'm not there. I'm just not there. I'm sleeping downstairs. I'm snapping on every member of my family. I'm calling my wife. Like here's the thing. It's like, if you're walking down the street and you see somebody walking down the street that did you wrong, and you're like, man, I'd like to spit in their face. But there's that part in your brain that says, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe that's a bad idea. Well, that part in me is all gone. It's gone. So the minute my wife pisses me off and something flies in my head, it comes out of my mouth. I called my wife every name in the book. I threw remotes at her. I spit in my wife's face. This is not going to make me look very, very good. I spit. Can you think of anything more demoralizing than spitting in a person's face? No less your wife, the person you made this union with. I did it. One day, my kids had all the toys that I had when I was a kid, Nerf guns and shit like that. My 3-year-old's in his room, and I walk in his room, and he turns around and he's playing. He's laughing. He's giggling. Turns around and points the gun at me. Now, what do we do when a gun's pointed at us? We do the move. You know the move. The move is you do this quick turn, and it turns around. You do this, and you rip. Well, I did that to a 3-year-old with a Nerf gun. You have children. So do you ever see your child's face when they're truly scared at you? Truly scared. I'm not talking about crying.
It's like a paralyzing throat, like freeze.
It's a freeze. Their bottom lip will drop, and they just sort of stare at you. Well, that was the look of my son. And that look, he was scared. I think I was more scared of especially what I did to him. I take the gun, and I snap it in two, and I throw it in the garbage. That moment, I walk out of the house. I get in my car, I drive. I park in a parking lot, I turn my cell phone off. I never carried my off-duty weapon. I never once, but I started carrying it because I wasn't sleeping, I was paranoid, I was drinking. It's not a good mixture. Started carrying it, I used to carry it on my ankle. I turn my phone off, throw it in the glove box. I walk about 2 miles down the road to this wooded area, and I go in. And I stay there for 3 days with a bottle of water. And I sit up against a tree, and I don't know I'm just trying to figure shit out. I don't know. I didn't have a plan. I really wasn't suicidal, but I couldn't live anymore. I didn't know how to live anymore. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm just trying to figure shit out until it's time to go home. I get in my car, walk to my car, I haven't slept in 3 days. Go home, walk in the door like nothing's wrong. Until one night, it's getting so bad. The relationship with my kids is deteriorating. The relationship with my wife is on a morphine drip. I was like, I can't take this no more. This ain't for me. I gotta check out. So I go in, I'm sleeping downstairs. I lived in a bi-level, so I'm sleeping downstairs, and my office was a just converted bedroom. I go in there and sit down at my desk. I write a note. I'm sorry that I'm changing. Sorry my life has come to this. Here's the bank passwords. Here's the life insurance policy. Here's how to contact the pension system. And I write this note, and at the end I say, feel free to do with your life however you wish. I hope you find happiness, whatever it was. That letter is somewhere in my house. I haven't seen it in quite a while. I go and grab my gun, and I have this wall. It was deep blue, the walls, but I have this wall with all my diplomas on it and some pictures of my grandfather who I adored and my kids and everything that I was proud of. And I'm just staring at this wall, and tears are flowing down, and I was like, all right, well, it's time. I take my gun, which was a Smith & Wesson 38 wheel gun, cheap special, hollow points in there. I recently qualified with it, and I didn't clean it, unfortunately. Turned the gun around, and I put it straight in my mouth. I cocked the hammer back. I put my finger on the trigger. And I'm sitting there, and I'm crying, and I'm going through everything. I'm actually looking for a reason to not do this, but I can't come up with one. Nothing is coming to my mind why I shouldn't do this. And 20 minutes, this thing had to be in my mouth. I'm tasting the gunpowder on my tongue. I can feel the metal on my teeth. And I'm ready to blow my head off. After about 20 minutes, something happened. I just have this like flash. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? You're about to kill yourself. And I take the gun out of my mouth, and I hold it in my hand, and that gun weighs 1 pound, 9 ounces. The only reason I know that, I don't know off the top of my head, I looked it up. I could have swore that was a 50-pound weight sitting in my hand. I'm sitting here and I'm holding this thing and I'm looking at this. And then I start thinking, I'm like, you stupid son of a bitch. You were going to blow your head off down here. One of your kids are sleeping upstairs. It's about 2:30 in the morning. Your wife's upstairs. Somebody's going to find you with half your head missing. And now you're creating generational trauma. The next day, there was one person I still spoke with in the police department. I didn't speak with anybody because here's the thing. People would call and I wouldn't pick up the phone because I didn't know what to say. And then there were people who didn't call who I'm like, what the fuck? But what's the point? I used to get mad at those people. I'm like, what's the point? I wouldn't pick up the phone anyway, and I don't know what to say. Neither do you.
You needed something to blame.
And I call him up, and thank God this guy didn't ask me any questions. I said, look, his name's Terry. I said, Terry, he was one of the guys there that night. I said, Terry, you mind holding my gun for me for a little bit? He says, sure. That was it. Absolutely. I'll be here. Put it in the lockbox. Give it to me. So that's what I did. Put that gun in the lockbox and I gave it away. But there's many different ways to kill yourself, right? So one of the things that I know there's nothing funny about suicide, but one of the funnier things that happened, I tried to hang myself in my garage with a rope. I had this rope that I used to tie I lived by a lake at the time, and I used to throw a toy out in the water for my dog. She would go get it and bring it back, and I would tie the rope just in case she got lazy and didn't get it. So I see this rope there, and I tie it over a beam, and I know how to tie a noose. Like I actually know how to tie a noose from when I was a kid. Tie a noose, put it around my neck. Yeah, I'm a little heavier than that rope could take. So here's what happened. I choked myself out, so I passed out. The rope broke, and I fell to the ground, and I was down there for about 3 hours, passed out. Pissed off when I woke up because I wasn't able to accomplish it. I've tried to take pills. I've tried, I'm driving down the road and you have those momentary things like if I just go off this bridge, it's, you don't want it to be painful because you're a big puss. You don't want it to be painful. You want it to be quick. So that's kind of not an option. I tried a couple different ways to kill myself. Now, I'm failing on all accounts. Obviously, a little spoiler alert for your audience. I did not kill myself, just in case anybody was wondering.
Thankfully.
Yeah. But now look at my life, right? So I'm a failure at this job that I love, that I felt like I finally fit in and found this purpose in this world. I'm failing at that.
This is what you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm failing at that. I'm failing with my marriage and my children. I'm failing there. And I'm failing, I can't even kill myself. I'm failing at that. And I don't know what my life is gonna come out to be. And then I get hit with one more piece of bad news. I'm sitting in my doctor's office, and he's an old Italian from Newark. If you've ever seen The Many Saints of Newark, that's how he grew up. He's the only gun-toting conservative that was at Woodstock. He's 80 years old now. His name's Dr. Eugene Stefanelli, and Dr. Steph saved my life. Let's put it that way. Let me make that very clear. But he's crazy. He's a crazy ginzo from Newark. He's a gun freak, right? So he brings in his gun. He brings in a Colt 45, 1945 Army model, whatever they used, but it's got the Bakelite handles, and I can still see it. It's pristine. It's beautiful. And he's like, I'm thinking of selling this gun. Now, obviously, it's unloaded, but think about how crazy this guy is. He brings a gun into an office with a guy who's suicidal. So he's like, what do you think of it? Now, I handled guns my whole life. I never had any fear of guns. He hands it to me, and I don't want to seem unmasculine, so I'm holding it. I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I couldn't wait to get it out of my hand. And I hand it back to him. I'm like, I think you get good money for that, and that was it. At the end of that session, he says, yeah, you can never go back. You got to retire. And what made his decision for it, I didn't find this out till a couple years later, that was the test. His test to me was to hand me that gun to see how I reacted to that gun, to see if I was for real. And apparently I passed. The worst thing in the world is to be successful at the wrong thing. And that's exactly what I was. So now I get this message that I can no longer be a police officer. Now what? Now I have to go through the retirement process, which is a whole other different ball of stress. The one thing that I did get involved in is I got involved in group therapy. So group therapy with other officers who were involved in shootings. that loneliness that I felt in the way that I was thinking, I found out that other officers feel the exact same way. So I wasn't as alone as I thought I was. I wasn't going to be judged amongst these people. So while I felt abnormal in most of my life, at least I felt a little normal here, right? And I could go there and I could be myself and I could drop my guard, and because we were all going through the same shit. And I saw myself return to normal in those group therapy sessions. I'm a smart ass, and we were all smart asses because that's where we felt most comfortable. That we would have a sign-up sheet and half the names would be fake, like I jeep my drawers or Oliver clothes off, and and the Dr. Steph who ran it would look at him and he'd always look at me, he always blame me. Sometimes, most of the time it was me, but it wasn't always me. And he'd look at me and he'd go, "Really?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?"
That one was not me.
Yeah, because some of them were bad. But from all these different walks of life, I found a little peace amongst some mutually shared suffering. So while I got to retire, I also know that I got to clamp down on my life. I got to bring myself back to normal. I'm drinking unheard of amounts. My drink was tequila. I checked myself into rehab, and I get sober. November 26, 2013 was the last drop of alcohol that I've had. And here we are in a brewery. Isn't that funny?
I didn't plan that accordingly.
No. Listen, if I had any problem walking in here, I'm not recovering. Seriously. I can be around alcohol. I can be anywhere because I don't have no desire for it anymore. I remember. So that suffering that I went through, I remember what that feeling's like. And that's what keeps me from going back. It's like, sure, I could probably have a beer. I could probably have a glass of wine. But one glass is going to turn into 2 glasses in a week. I'll be back. And I don't want to go back. I don't want to do that anymore. So I totally cleaned my life up. And I start on the path through a lot of therapy, through the retirement process. In June of 2001, I officially retired. 2014, I officially retired. Now I'm out in the open. I'm in the same position. I've made no progress. I'm in the same position that I was when I went to college or when I got out of college or when I left teaching. I'm in the same position that I was. And I just sort of, wander through life. But I never left group therapy. I never left it because even though I was retired, I had every right to just step away from group therapy. There were some people who helped me along the way. And I always felt a debit to the help that I received, that I must return that favor, not to the person who gave it to me, but to other people. So I sort of just stayed there and helped the younger guys or helped the people who were fresh. I'd go out on response teams for officer-involved shootings with my doctor and, just trying to give them some peace. I'm like, well, people would walk in there and you'd have that look, right? Like, oh, I know what you're about to go through and it ain't going to be fun. And I would tell them, I said that, there's nothing I can say to take this away. And you're about to go on a wild ride. But I want you to know something. I will be standing right by your side. I will jump in that hole with you to make sure that you're not alone in that hole because I know exactly how you're feeling. So don't think that there's nobody that understands.
It's the prairie fire.
That's the prairie fire.
We're going to get through that fire.
We're
not running.
I'm going to hold your hand and I'll get burnt with you. And there's many times I did get burnt with these people. And then I want to say October 2014, guy walks in and I recognize him. His name is Mike Falaise. He walks in and I see the look in his face, right? I see that look that I was just talking about. And I go, ooh. I go, Mike, what's going on? I know Mike for 20 years. I used to work with his brother. I said, Mike, what's going on? He goes, I was in that shooting in Lyndhurst. And I was like, all right, man, we got you. We exchanged numbers and we became ultra close since then, like brothers, like true brothers. We get that phone call. We knew if we didn't hear from each other in a couple of days, something was up. Like that's how it was. And we just maintained that relationship. And, that's kind of what I still do today. I give out my number way too much. A lot of people have my phone number. And I'll get some calls. Most of them are just bad day calls. But, living the life that I've lived for the past, 12 years, I have different resources. I have different tools. I have a toolbox now that while I don't have any letters in front of or after my name, I'm not a licensed therapist. I do not dole out advice. I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to let you know that I'm not going to judge you. On the way here, I got a phone call from a guy who's he had a relapse. I'm like, all right. And he was afraid to call me. I'm like, all right, man, don't worry about it. This is what you do. It's not how you fall. It's how you pick yourself up. And I just have those places to send people. So that's how it's opened up. So to get to your original question, and I know this is a long story in order to get to the podcast, because you asked me how did I start the podcast. Lockdown hits, and I don't have group therapy anymore. So I'm like, I think I can do this podcasting thing. So I research how to do it. I don't know anything. I don't even have an Instagram account. I got a Facebook account for my personal stuff. I got nothing.
Look at you now.
I buy this equipment. I steal half of my kids' playroom in the basement, put up moving blankets to block the sound, and I did the best I could. And I floundered through 8 episodes of audio on this concept. The concept's never changed. On this concept that the other side of suffering is a beautiful place. How you get through it and how other people get through it, there's many different ways to do it. But I'm telling you, and I promise you, once you get through, it'll no longer be your weakness. It'll be your strength. Because when I first retired, I never told anybody I was a police officer. I was a retired police officer because I was embarrassed. I was 39 years old. And the subsequent question, when you tell them that you're retired, like, what, did you get on when you're 12? How are you so young? No, dickhead. I was in a shooting, and I tried to kill myself 7 or 8 times, and it really took me down the bad path. But, hey, thanks for asking. Thanks for being so glib about it.
I can see why that would be.
Yeah.
It's a good convo starter.
I would tell people I was a landscaper because I was embarrassed. Fast forward 6 years, and it flopped, right? It flopped on me. That weakness that I thought became a strength, and I began to lead with it. Because here's the problem. So Anthony Vocatoro gets arrested. He gets talked out. I never landed that one. He gets 6 years for attempted murder on a police officer. 6 years. He does 4.
Good behavior.
Yeah. I know where he is. I know where he lives. I know his address. And I used to hate him. I mean, if I saw him, I'd have punched him in the face. Something happened, and I don't know when this happened, but I started thinking about it. And I was like, man, what had to go on in his mind for him to shoot at police officers twice? What had to go on in his mind? How much pain did that man have to be in? I also knew that he wasn't shooting at Kevin Donaldson. He was shooting at a police officer. So it wasn't personal. And once I did that, once I said to myself, what did he have to go through? Everything flipped. I was no longer the victim. I was the victor because I came out ahead on that one, right? I survived. I survived with a different perspective. And because of that, it's my mission. And because of the way how suicidal I was, it's become my mission to make sure that nobody gets to that spot without somebody standing. There's going to be people there. We're losing officers left and right. We're losing anywhere from 180 to 250 a year. That's only active. We're not watching retired guys. Retired guys are offing themselves at record numbers, and nobody's keeping tabs on it.
What about the ones in between? We never talk about that.
What do you mean the ones in
between? You did 10 years. Maybe you vested, maybe you didn't, and you leave for a different career.
Yeah.
That you did 10 years of something. We don't talk about that.
Right, because we're shutting down our emotions like we were talking about earlier. We're shutting down our emotions. We do it at work because we have to go on to the next call. It's a survival technique. And now we're doing it at home. And now it just builds and builds. And before you know it, you just can't, it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, I know guys who, they did 5 years, right, in a city. 5 years. When you talk to someone on the job 5 years, you're so new, you don't know anything yet. When these 5 years, he saw death. He brought death, unfortunately. He was involved in a situation that required him to do something that still haunts him to this day. On the face, you were only a cop for 5 years. You did more things in those 5 years. You've seen more things in those 5 years than most people will see in their lifetime. And that's someone who's now in society trying to figure out the rest of his life. because you can't just go be in office, work in an office.
Well, you think you're weak.
Yeah.
Right? You think you're who I'm assuming you're talking about somebody specific. This poor guy thought he was weak. What do you mean? Why am I having these thoughts? I was only a cop for 5 years. We may have to use our guns, and I can't handle it. That was me, right? I felt like I wasn't even shot. What the hell are you talking about? Why am I am the weakest son of a bitch in the world?
There's people who were shot. There's people who were killed.
Because we fight for trauma trophies, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we fight for trauma trophies. And guys are very guilty of this. Like, you and I are sitting down talking. And we're talking, let's get police work out. We're talking about the gym. Hey, listen, the other day I threw up 315 for 3. You come at me, 315, that's it? I was doing 345 for 5, like warm-up reps. So you're just constantly trying to one-up each other. Well, guys do that with trauma, right? You start to qualify your own trauma. It's like, well, I wasn't shot, and this person was shot 3 times, and he's okay. And no, they're not okay. We just had an officer, he was shot 9 times in a neighboring town, same local. He was shot 9 times. He survived, and then he was in a bad car accident. He ends up retiring on a medical, and he just got put away for 5 years for drunk driving when he ran over somebody. Kind of makes sense why that happened. People say, "Oh, you ruined your life. You're stupid." And then you when you retire on a medical, like I did, you have all the people. "Oh, you hit the lottery." "Oh, really? You think I hit the lottery? Come live my lottery lifestyle."
I love when I hear that. It's like, you didn't want this.
You don't want this.
You didn't want this.
You don't want the pressure on your family. Like the hero of my story is my wife. She's still with me. Why? I'll never know. Listen, looks aside. Listen,
Just look back here, man.
I can talk well. Let's wait. I married.
You're very articulate.
I married up because I can talk. I can talk a good game. But she stayed with me, right? She stayed with me, and she had every right in the world. Nobody would have blamed her one little bit for leaving me. I was a monster to her. And guess what? Over the past 12 years, I'm not going to tell you my marriage is great, but over the last 12 years, I've had to slowly rebuild my marriage. And that took a lot of effort. It's still going on. And there's moments when we fight, and she's got post-traumatic stress because of my bad shit, because now when I get anxious, like 4th of July is coming up, and the anniversary of my shooting's coming up, and I always have bad times with those. She knows this, so she starts building up with anxiety. She knows that I'm going to be short, and she knows all this stuff. And she's just kind of like waiting for the shot to be fired. Is he going to
resort to the past? Yeah, it's a tough situation.
So how do we overcome this stuff, right? So we overcome this stuff through consistency, right? We have to maintain our consistency. I am nothing special. The one thing that I have is consistency. I will do the same. I will just keep working. You cannot break me down. You cannot make me quit. If there is a goal, I will claw and do whatever I got to do in order to make that goal, especially when it's a personal goal. This isn't the same where you have a career and it's ending and it's time to move on to the next thing. That's not what it is. I will continue with my marriage until I'm where I want to be, which is never going to happen, right? So I will just continue to work. That's my only superpower, is my consistency, is the fact that you can't stop me, you can't make me quit. It's just not going to happen.
Did that situation give you that?
That situation. So here's the different eyes, right? Here's the perspective that suffering gives you. Do you know today, if Anthony Vocatoro came walking in, and I hope one day somebody reaches out to me, hey, if you want his address, I'll give it to you. I would love to sit down with him to hear his side of the story, because I guarantee you he doesn't know my side. Maybe he does. He doesn't know my side of the story. He doesn't know what I went through, what he caused. I would love to sit down, because I think he might be a little afraid when he doesn't realize that I would probably give him a big giant hug, because that man, Anthony Vocatoro, who shot at me, who tried to kill me, was probably one of the biggest angels in my life. Because let's be honest, maybe, is there a possibility that I was never supposed to be a cop? But being a cop was a conduit in order to do something greater, to do something extraordinary with my life. Because if you don't do something extraordinary in your life, you better be prepared to be forgotten. And we all have the ability to be extraordinary, but you have to have the strength, and you have to be able to run through the fear, run through the fire in order to get there. So Anthony Vocatoro is one of the biggest angels in my life, because I believe He put me exactly where I was supposed to be. He put me here. Had Anthony Vocatoro never done what he'd done, I would have never met you. I would never be at Seminar Stack. I would never be speaking all over the country. We just got back from Hawaii speaking for the Maui Police Department. That would have never happened. And I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed that I want to thank this man for putting me in the spot to where I was supposed to be. I've never started a Suffering podcast. I just wouldn't have been able to grasp the concept. So was I ever supposed to be a cop? I don't know. Was it just a conduit to put me where I'm supposed to be? Because that same reason I wanted to be a cop, that same reason that I found out what true police work is which making an impact on people's lives, I'm still doing it. I just don't wear a badge anymore.
You were given a gift.
And some gifts come as a punch in the face. And that's what happened here.
It's like I embody that. I truly believe, like I've done some things in my life, and although I'm apologetic to the people I've hurt in that process, because that was never my intention, I'm not apologetic. It happened. I apologize for how I made you feel.
We always have things happen to us in the time and space that they're supposed to happen.
Yeah, because I'm like, obviously if you're doing things for the right reason, you better yourself. Try to be a better person, right? And you were given something. I say given. Obviously, something happened to you. You could have gone about it two ways. The first way you went about it, you tried it, right? That comes with an end. And
things don't happen to us; they happen for us, right? This is what that pain and suffering brings. All right, you cannot get this perspective without having that experience.
And I'll say this: I asked you this question before. I want to see how you answer it. Pain and suffering, they go together, but I think they're vastly different, right? You went through pain, in which you've used to build yourself, learn, grow, and now you use that pain to do a lot of good things, have a lot of good conversations, and help a lot of people. Suffering is remaining in that pain with no outcome, with no goal. You're just suffering. You're feeling the pain, and you're doing nothing with it. You're letting it consume you. That's suffering. Pain, you're using to grow. You're using to eventually, right? And in that moment, you're not like, oh, I'm growing in this. This is a good, the more you go through things, the better you become at dealing with them. The easier it is to be aware of, this is something that's going to build me one day.
The suffering is the lesson. The suffering is the high school diploma. The pain becomes the college degree. Okay? So what do people do in our atmosphere? They'll read a Jocko Willink book. They'll read a David Goggins book. And they'll go out and light the world on fire for about 3 to 4 months. And they realize this shit sucks.
It's been gracious, 3-4 months.
Yeah. This shit sucks and this shit hurts and this is insane. Well, yeah, when you're doing something that nobody else can do, people are going to look at you different. People are going to think you're insane. But that consistency, so pain and suffering is one thing, but having the consistency to continue to grow and continue to learn from that stuff is essential. You're a jiu-jitsu guy, okay? So you get wrapped up by a guy that's half your size, lower belt level than you. And you could be demoralized. You could be hurt. You could quit. And some people do. But the good ones stay consistent. They go back and they learn from that experience. Why did that happen? How did I let that happen? Let me make sure that doesn't happen again. So it's a 3-step process. It's the suffering, the pain, and then the consistency.
Remaining relentless.
Yes. Well, that's a perfect word for this, right? It's a perfect word.
That's why when I heard when Eric and Kate were like, you need to talk to Kevin. I'm like, well, let me look up this Kevin guy. Obviously, the Suffering podcast came up, a lot of your page, and here's the thing: I don't just shoot invites, although it may seem that way. But I will speak with anyone who has a story to tell. But in hearing your story and kind of getting your background, I'm like, dude, if there's anyone who's relentless, it's you because of your approach, right? Not because of what you've been through, because people have gone through that and nothing happens, right? Mm-hmm. It's how you approach that situation and chosen to move forward. And I think there's a lot of value in your story. And that's why I say you were given a gift, right? Because that situation not happening, this Kevin's not here, right?
True.
Who knows the man you'd be today? Maybe you'd be a kabillionaire because you developed something with software. Who knows, right? But the man you are today stems from all the decisions you've made and the processes you've been through. And we always get stuck in that, like, oh, well, he did this or he did. It's like, well, what are we doing now? Right? Because we are all humans. We've all been through things. We've all done things. My favorite is when you're talking with someone and they're looking down on you. I try not to judge anyone, right? Because of the things I've been through and the things I've done, right? That doesn't mean I excuse bad behavior, or excuse things, right? I check it when I can, or when it's appropriate, or when it's called for. But nobody's perfect, and we're all doing this life together for the first time, and we're all trying to figure it out, right? And as soon as you start becoming better than someone and looking down, that's when shit hits the fan. Because
Do you ever hear that comparison is the thief of joy?
all the time.
All right, and I wholeheartedly believe that. But here's some other things. Like, I would have never been able to publish that book. I'm a deacon in a church because I rediscovered my faith very haphazardly through the Suffering podcast. It's the freaking craziest story you'll ever see in your life. So there's a gentleman. I got introduced to this guy. He's a retired professional hockey player. His name's Adam Burke. And episode 17, I'm on audio. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I just bring this guy in, but he wants to meet me for coffee. I'm like, all right, I'll make time to go sit with a professional hockey player. And he's got some big marks. As a matter of fact, he played in the longest game in NHL history against the Pittsburgh Penguins when he was with the Philadelphia Flyers. All right? He played in that game.
Small world.
Yeah, he played in that game. Just to bring a little Pittsburgh reference. So I'm sitting there and I'm having coffee with him, and he's a pastor now. Like he's always been a Jesus guy, and he, in the part of his life he was a halfway Jesus guy. And there was a story I recently heard to bring this home. The devil and Jesus are on one side of a fence, okay? And there's a guy in the middle, that's me, and there's a fence in the middle. And I'm standing near the fence, and the devil tells me, if you come with me, I'm going to give you everything you want. You want fame? I'll give you fame. You want women? I'll give you women. You want money? I'll give you money. Jesus is on the other side, and he says, I can't give you any of those things. And the life I'm going to tell you to live is going to be tough and difficult, and it's going to try it sometimes. But I promise you, at the end of it, you will see the light. You will be in heaven sitting next to me, and you will be this perfect being and fulfill your destiny. So while I'm sitting in the middle, I'm looking at the devil. I'm like, well, you sell a pretty good product. I kind of want some of those things. But you, Jesus, you sell a pretty good product too. So I kind of want some of those things. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit in the middle. I'm going to sit directly on this fence, and I'm going to be half over here and I'm going to be half over here, so I can have the best of both worlds. And the devil comes up behind me and hugs me and grabs me. And he goes, now I got you. And I go, what do you mean you got me? I'm in the middle.
I didn't choose you.
I didn't choose anybody. And he goes, you don't understand. I own the fence. Right? So I'm sitting there and I'm having coffee with this guy, and 3 days later he sends me a text, calls me KD. He goes, hey KD, I'm praying for you. I'm like, motherfucker, who are you fucking praying for? Who the fuck do you think you are praying? And I'm mad. Like, I'm fucking furious. I'm like, who the fuck you praying for? I'm saying this shit out loud. And I think about it. And I think about it. And I think about it. And then I have him in. And we don't even talk much about hockey. And he's also the chaplain for the New York Jets. We don't even talk about that stuff. We talk about his path to God. And it's stuck in me. There's certain lessons that stick in you. And I go to his church, and I feel something for the first time ever in church. And I find this faith. And through this faith, my life has come full circle, right? I am provided opportunities, and this is not why I do it, but I've provided opportunities that I could have never dreamed of. And I sit on a level playing field because we're all believers, right? I go to chapel at the New York Jets facility, and I sit amongst some of the greatest athletes in the world, where the old me would sit and marvel at them. I look at them as fellow believers. I sit amongst this Sunday, tomorrow, I am leading the church. I was the biggest sinner in the world, bro. I was the biggest sinner in the world. I was the worst person in the world. I was not a good person. And this is the power of Anthony Vocatoro. Brought me all around.
And knowing that outcome, knowing where you're at now, we'd do it 10 times over.
Yeah, if I had to re-up, I would. You get that question a lot, right? If you had to go back, would you change anything? I wouldn't change a damn thing.
Yeah, no. But like when we're going through it, you're wishing everything was different.
So I think about it this way. So I'm walking through this darkness, right? This complete darkness.
Walking through the valley of the shadow of death.
Right, the old Coolio thing. And I'm thinking I'm all alone, and it's never ending. Eventually it ends, right? So my Psalm 23, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. There's a part in that nobody pays attention to. Yea, though I walk through. Okay? Nobody pays attention to that. The worst thing you can do is stop walking. You have to continue to walk. And you're going to miss things along the way, right? So I don't want you to think that if you find all these things, you're going to be perfect. You're going to miss things along the way. So that person who became my brother, who episode 9, I bring him in on the Suffering podcast, and he sits next to me until episode 183. And I'm watching his life implode. And I'm trying to pull. I see his life backsliding so bad. He's drinking. He's not talking to his kids. He gets a divorce. His life is just imploding. And he's coming in, and we're recording, and he's drinking when he's recording. And I knew what was going on, but I should have been man enough to say, get out of here and sober up and get your stuff together. And you'll always have that chair here. But I didn't. I missed it because my ego got too big. So what does God do when your ego gets too big? He puts you in check. On May 9th, 2024, Mike Felice and I, we record our last episode, 183, in the parking lot in the rear. We're talking, and we always told each other we loved us. And I just lost my father-in-law, so we're talking about that a little bit. And he turns to me and he goes, hey, Kev, I love you. Now, we always told each other we loved each other, but it was different. Well, that night, he died of a single gunshot wound to his head, self-inflicted, at about 12:30, from what we can imagine. I was the last person to see him, and it woke me up. I thought I was doing pretty good. So I'm very cautious now in how I approach things now. It's changed the way I approach things. I'm going to be the proverbial pain in the ass. If I see you backsliding, I'm going to be on you until you say, get the fuck away from me. But I don't care if you hate me. I really don't. And I do it. I don't care if you hate me. All right? As long as you're alive to say you hate me. That's all I care about. So I miss things along the way. I have lots of victories. I also have tons of defeats. And I continue to overcome those defeats. Now, Mike taking his life. I could have backslid. I could have fallen into alcohol again. I could have fallen into bad behavior because it hurt. It hurt real bad. I could have anesthetized all those feelings. I chose not to. I chose to live in it. I chose to sit in it and marinate in it because these little things are put in our way, or put in our vision. Now, Mike's peripheral vision was just like this, just like mine was. Couldn't see any of the things going on, and all he could see was the pain, the hurt, and that tunnel. But he didn't realize that there were people with night vision on walking next to him, trying to help him, but unfortunately, it didn't work. And I've had to live the last year of my life doing this crazy thing alone, and it's fun, and I love it. It was much more fun with him.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's easy to look at something like that and be like, why am I doing this? Why am I continuing? And who knows when you see the other side of this. But we're in the moment where we don't see the end goal. We don't see the vision. We don't see what's planned for us. And we just have to, I hate to say the word embrace, but kind of like lean into where we're at and try to figure out, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I take from this? How can I let this moment not go to waste, right? How can I honor his life and use this story to help others? And that's all we can do. And
it hurts every single day.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
It hurts every single day. And my feeling is, and I've been told contrary to this, but I believe that I failed him. I'm here trying to do all these things, but people who take their lives, you'll hear people around them say, I never thought he'd do it. I never thought he would get to that point. But we have to keep our eyes open because again, our peripheral vision. So when I was in that spot, my peripheral vision was here, right? This is all I could see. I started getting better. My peripheral vision opened up. And guess what? That slowly, you gotta exercise that shit because that'll slowly go back here, slowly go back here. Mike takes his life. Now my peripheral vision is 10 times as wide because I see the collateral damage. Not only do I see what I missed, but I see the collateral damage that his death has caused in my life. The collateral damage of people who still talk about him to this day. His girlfriend, who I speak to once or twice a week still continually has dreams about him. You know, all this stuff. And his kids, he had a broken relationship with his kids. He didn't see the generational trauma that he put on his kids because kids of people who take their lives are 70% more likely to take their life. Now, you love your kids. I don't know any real man who doesn't love their kids. If you were going to do something right now, today, that had a 70% chance of adversely affecting your child, would you do it?
Well, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I don't care what it is. Listen, just let's say you speeding while she's in the car. She has a 70% chance of going really fast when she gets her license. If you knew that, you'd slow down.
Well, it's the things we overlook, right? If we had this, like, when we're going to go do something, this pause moment, hold on. There's a 70% chance outcome that this happens to your child.
Yep.
Or this happens to the people who love you and you love.
Yep.
Do you want to continue down this road? I think majority of people would be like, actually, no, I wasn't even thinking about that. I wasn't considering that.
You never make a bet that has a 70% chance of losing.
Yeah. But we go through life looking through the small window. And I don't think you failed him, right? Like we're all men, we all make our own decisions, and some people, I call it are about that life, right? Like I've met people who haven't been about that life, and I'm thankful, right? And there's some people who've done it, and you're like, oh, man, what if? And when we live in the what ifs, it's not up for us to decide.
The woulda, coulda, shouldas will kill you quicker than a bullet.
Every time.
Yeah.
And it's tough. The only thing we can do is kind of use what we're given for the betterment of everyone else. And I'll fall on the sword to kind of like help others. And what bigger sword can you fall on?
So here's the positives of it, right? There is no positive of Mike taking his life. I miss him every single day.
Yeah.
But the positives that came out of Mike's death is the willingness for people to open up. So it opened up a lot of conversations with a lot of people because they saw how much that we were all hurting those people who were closest to him. And now they open up the conversation. And now they have their eyes open to people around them that maybe they were blind to for a short period of time and say, hey, let's keep an eye on this guy. So all of a sudden, the weirdest thing happened. My life got super busy after that because I was on the phone constantly with people trying to do my best, but realizing also that I can't save everybody. You understand? It's not my place to save everybody. So I have some people in my life that keep me sane, keep me whole, and give me a lot of assistance. Tom Flynn, Bobby Crudell, Mike DePalma. These are my best friends in the world. And these are the people who I lean on and say, hey, who do you know here? What do you got here? We got this person in trouble. So that's how we move things along. You know, Mike's death, while unfortunate, has, maybe that was his path, just like my path was to get shot at and go through all these bad things. Maybe that was his path in order to save somebody else. I don't know.
And we will never know. But that's how we have to. That's how I approach things, right? It's just like, I believe in a higher divine power. He gives life. He has the ability to take it, right? And when we're thinking what he has for us, eternal. What he has for us is eternal. The 80 years we spend on earth, if we're blessed enough to spend that, it's a blimp of.
You're being generous with 80. I ain't making it to 80. Well, so my pastor actually, after it happened, my pastor put it into perspective with me. So whatever I talk about, wherever I go, I buy into the shit, okay? I've sat in harmonic eggs. I've done Reiki. Listen, if you would have told me in my worst of the worst times, the path to you getting better is for you to stick your own head up your ass, I would have started stretching. Like, that's the truth. And so I did, and Mike never did. Like, okay, the path to finding your faith, that's going to give you some peace. Okay, and it is the truth. So my pastor said, I met you and Mike right here, same spot, very level, same place in life. And he goes, then I watched you find your faith, and I watched this. And then I saw Mike walk away from that, and it was just like this. So what happened was, by the time Mike's life ended, and there was conflict between us because of this, I was here, he was here, and the further away we got from each other, the less we stopped listening. Okay, the less we stopped listening. You have to grow. We were growing apart. I know it sounds kind of weird for two men to grow apart, but that's the truth. We were growing apart. I felt very beholden to this mission and message that I got involved in, 4 years prior, or 12 years prior with group therapy. And Mike was just talking at the end. He was just talking and trying to hang on, and he couldn't hang on no more.
And given all the things you've been through, what is your goal? Where do you see yourself going? You have the Suffering podcast, which reaches a lot of ears. Through that, you've created a nonprofit. You've got this book. What is your goal moving forward using all of these things that have happened for you?
One day, when I close my eyes for the last time, and I get to meet my divine Father, I want that person to put their hand on my shoulder and say, "You did good, kid. You did good." And I'm able to move on with a whole heart and a full soul, to know that with the tools that I was given in this life, I maximized every single one of those tools. I lived every moment the best way that I could, the best way with the gifts that I was given. I can't save everybody. I sure as hell am going to try, but I can't save everybody. All I can do is hope that one day when we shuffle off this mortal coil, as Shakespeare says in Hamlet, and when I go to the undiscovered country from whose born no traveler returns, I know I'm a huge nerd, but you just deal with it and don't judge me. I want to make sure that when that hand goes on my shoulder, and I feel that true love for the first time, knowing that I did my best. And I may not have totally accomplished my mission, but I never gave up.
I think you said something that resonates. You did your best with what you were given. And that looks different for everyone, right? We have people in their highs, we have people in their lows, and we have a bunch of people in between. Are you doing your best with what you were given? And if you can't answer that, maybe that's a moment where you can start doing some self-reflection and seeing how you can change your life to be able to do that, be a resource for people, right? Because I think it does come around tenfold. And we're not putting this life for me as much as we approach it that way, right? What can I gain? How can I get a promotion? How can I, as soon as you start living for your brother and your sister and they start doing the same thing, I think things start to change. You start to see miracles happen.
So the funny thing about life is I believe we're put here to connect to people, right? And people believe, cops believe, especially cops, that we connect to people through our success. So I have all these different badges on awards on my chest for this, and they're like, oh, this one's for this one's for this. And you and I could sit here and talk, well, I did this and I did this and I did all your successes, whatever they may be in your life. And I'm going to sit here and I'll listen to them and I'll be like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. But if you sat down and told me about a time where you felt like giving up, you felt like quitting, you felt like you didn't have it, now all of a sudden you'll see me go like this. You'll see me just sit in and say, what was that like? What did that feel like? So ultimately in this life that I believe we're put here to connect with certain people, the way you connect to people is not through success. You connect to people through your vulnerabilities. That's what opens up conversations. And that's my value. So here's my value. I'm a guy that certainly has the capability for violence. I've exhibited it, I've done it, and I can do it. I've chose to put it under control and, tell you these awful things that I've done and these moments of weakness that I have, knowing that you can never judge me as harshly as I judge myself. And if you're unkind to me, I also have the capability to punch you in the face. Okay, I would prefer not. I would prefer not. It's my last line of defense. But that's what I do. I connect to people, and for some reason, and it's unbeknownst to me, I don't know how I got here, right? I don't know how all this stuff happened. I look at this stuff and I said, the only thing I can tell you is I'm unapologetically vulnerable with what I'm saying. I'm not a pussy. You know, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just going to tell you, I did all these awful things and I'm still standing. You know, I'd fly out to do this damn thing in California, this Jubilee video. Why the hell did they choose me? Why is this put in front of me? Was I supposed to reach somebody? Was I supposed to connect with somebody? What was that? What's the purpose? And these things are put in front of my field of vision when I need them. And for whatever reason, maybe it's not for me, maybe it's for somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, talk about falling on the sword on that.
No, don't judge me by that one joke, please.
No, yeah. Well, I don't even have to mention it because
everybody knows it's the TikTok thing. Yeah.
But yeah, it's not why are we here? Just glad to be here, and that's my whole thing. Like I tell people, like I just got on the SWAT team, and obviously I'm the new guy doing all the fun things, right? And I'm just smiling. You got the people giving you shit, right? Because you're the F and G, and I get it. I love it. I embrace it, right? And my whole thing is, I'm just glad to be here. Like, oh, you're gonna be doing this? You're good. I'm just glad to be here.
Cool.
Like I've wanted this for a long time. I finally got it. I won't take advantage of it. I'm just glad to be here. And that's what everything in life, right? This conversation, glad to be here. You know, as I'm changing the tire yesterday, the whole thing I'm thinking about is like, hey, I get to talk with you. Like these two dudes drove very far to come give me their time.
But you have to give up control.
Glad to be here.
Right? You have to give up that control.
Yeah.
Control is completely an illusion. You know, here's a little snapshot. I was in Louisiana last week, and while I'm in Louisiana, my wife calls me and says, hey, one of the drains for the sink, the dishwasher, and the washing machine, it's backing up. I'm like, shit, you know. All right, well, I can't do anything. You got to call a plumber and snake it out. So when I get home, the plumber's still there. I got a hole cut in my wall. I'm like, son of a bitch, I'm going to fix that one. And he's stuck. He can't get through, and the camera can't go down there. It's all murky water. So he comes in from the other side, and as soon as the camera hits it, I know. I work in construction too. And as soon as it hits clean stone, I'm like, oh, my God, I got a collapsed pipe. I got a collapsed drain pipe underneath my concrete slab in my basement, which is my gym, which is where my wife makes her living. She's a personal trainer. And I'm sitting there and I'm getting anxious. I had to get somebody in there next day. A lot of money later, money that I really don't have, money that is a safety net for my family. And now I'm getting anxious, right? Because I can't control this situation. It's out of my control. Until one day, I put my hands up like this and I said, God, I relent control. There's nothing I can do. All right. And this is going to work out however you choose to work it out. And, I just thank you for your time type of thing. And I do that and I find this peace. All right. I find this peace. Yeah. My bank account's drained. Okay. The gym is a mess and I had to clean every inch of it and take the mats up and do all that stuff. Okay. It is what it is. I relented control and I found peace. And here's what happened. I did have the wherewithal when it happened to call my homeowners. I never put in a homeowner's insurance claim in my life. I get a call from my homeowner's insurance. They're like, yeah, we're going to cover this amount. And it covered everything. And it covered anything. All because I was willing to relent control.
I think that's when it's most important to give thanks and appreciate, right? Like, I'm telling you, I'm walking towards the truck and I've seen that lean and I laugh, right? My flight's been delayed multiple times. I have you guys waiting. I'm sitting here, I'm like, if there's anything worse, it would be this, right? I'm already on a time crunch.
But we did an Instagram Live. We were sitting in the car last night. We did an Instagram Live and we're talking about this. Like, and I said, sometimes things are out of your control and you just got to give people grace. And that's if we do that in our lives, think about how much lives are going to be better. Your kid's going to piss you off one day. When they get older, they're going to piss you off to a level that you got to give them a little grace. Okay? You have to. And hopefully whatever consequences come from their bad behavior isn't too harsh.
Yeah, and back to that giving thanks thing, right? So you get there, and I'm like, oh, there's no cars parked around. There was a storm. It's not raining. I'm like, God, thank you for allowing me to change this tire
Yeah.
while it's dry and there's no cars around. Because imagine airport parking, that would have sucked. So I'm like, thank you. Like, thank you. You know, and, you know, you guys were here in good spirits, had a fire conversation with Tom, another fire conversation with you. And I'm just like,
And God's got a humor. Got humor. And I'm gonna let. I shouldn't be telling you that. You know this, but I shouldn't be telling your audience this. But it's actually kind of funny. So God has a sense of humor. So we're sitting out there, and we were here for probably an hour and 40 minutes. Okay, and Tom's in the car. Tom Flynn's in the car with me, and he's got to go to the bathroom. Right, and he says, I'm going to go over in the corner over here, and I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I guarantee you he's going to show up. And I shit you not, as soon as he's over there and I know he's into it, I see your headlights come and I start crying, laughing. I said, man, God, you got a great sense of humor. God bless you.
that's funny. Because I was like, dude, what if this ain't them? Like, this dude just emerged from the shadows as soon as I came.
No, he was taking a leak and he got caught.
He does. You know, he keeps us humble.
Yeah, but I appreciate it. Listen, it's been a ride.
Yeah, and one thing I always like to end with is after, you know, you've covered a lot of things, a lot of crazy things. Man,
You are crazy.
you are crazy.
Yeah.
When this episode's over, when people have listened to it, they shut their phones off, whatever, the radio's off. What's one message you want people to take with them?
When stuff is coming your way, when pain's coming your way, when the storm is getting crazy, you have to understand something, that the devil doesn't bother with people who aren't on the path to success. The devil will only try to get in your way when you're about to do something great, because what he wants to do, he knows if you stay on that path, you're going to do some amazing things. You're going to be extraordinary and you're never going to be forgotten, but you're going to stay on that path, and what he'll just put obstacles and try to veer you off the path and make sure that you're not staying on the same place. You need to fight that one. You need to push forward, and knowing that the more obstacles are thrown in your way is the more reason to keep going. That is the only reason. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And if it was easy, it's probably the direction you're not supposed to go in the first place. All right? There was plenty of obstacles thrown in my way throughout my life. From the time I was a child to the end of my police career to current day. There's plenty of obstacles get thrown in my way. You have to relent control and stop thinking that things are happening to you. They're happening for you. So all those obstacles are just trying to stand in your way because you're on the precipice of doing something great. There's a great, I think it's like Matthew 19 or 20. All the 12 apostles are in a boat. Jesus is in a boat with them, and there's a bad storm. You got to remember, some of those apostles are fishermen, right? They're used to the sea. They're used to storms on the sea, and this storm is bad. And they're freaking out. They're thinking the boat's going down. And then they look over at Jesus, and this guy's sleeping. Not only is he sleeping, he brought a pillow with him. He purposely went to sleep. So there's a plan. The chaos may look like chaos, but there's a plan. And the people who know what the outcome of the plan is are often the calmest. And what's the outcome of the plan? Just tell yourself, this is the way that it's supposed to happen. I relent control, and it's going to turn out however it's supposed to turn out.
And to piggyback on that, that's not an excuse to just sit back, right? It's do your best given a situation at hand, and the outcome's going to be the outcome.
John 19, I think it's John 19, faith takes work. And the work is for you to have the fortitude in order to trust the plan. All right, that's the work. All right.
Now we're quoting scripture. I love it.
I'm not a theologian. I say the F-bomb way too much. And I don't want to present myself as this divine human being. I find a lot of peace in faith, and that's the only reason that it relates to me.
And that's what I try to tell people, right? Like, just because I follow faith, I'm not perfect.
No,
we all fall short. It's literally in the gospel. We all fall short, right? And I got no bigger bone to pick with the more higher than holy Christians who like to point fingers. It's like, I'm not perfect. I'm trying to develop a relationship and put my best foot forward every day. That's it, you know? And I find peace in my faith.
I am the most fallible human being on the planet. I've made every mistake and wrong move that a human being can make. I'm still standing and I'm still breathing and I still have some time left on this earth, although every year it keeps getting shorter. I'm going to spend it the right way.
You're aging like a fine wine.
Except the lines in my forehead, which my friends make fun of me for. I'm like, what the hell? What do you want me to do?
Character.
Yeah, it's character.
Character.
This is when my son screwed up. This is when my wife. Yeah.
Where can people follow you online if they want to, if they're interested in what you have to say? They kind of, your message resonated with them. Where can they follow you? Where can they follow your podcast and kind of get involved or hear more?
The two best ways are either go to realkevindonaldson.com or thesufferingpodcast.com. On Instagram is where I sit mostly. You either go to The Suffering Podcast or at The Suffering Podcast or at Real Kevin Donaldson. But if you go to either of those websites, there's jumping off points to all our social media. We're on everything. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. We're even on OnlyFans. No, we're not on OnlyFans. The reason
Subscribe.
the reason I say that is I used to end every show with Mike. And I'd go through, hey, follow us on all social media. It's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. And he would chime in over the shoulder, OnlyFans. So as an homage to him, every show I end, I will always say OnlyFans.
Why? I'm honored that you brought that tradition here.
Don't worry, I'm not selling feet pics or anything like that.
Feet pics is good. No, I do appreciate you for jumping on. I have a challenge coin for you.
Beautiful. I know Tom gave you one of ours last night.
Yes, he did, and it's right over there. And the first thing I did when I came in, I looked at it, held it, and felt the weight, which carries a lot more weight now, knowing, the people who are involved in that. So I do appreciate you for jumping on. This is the one with Kevin Donaldson, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again August 2nd at Seminar Stack,
Grantwood, Pennsylvania, Hollywood Casino.
Yeah, he's going to be speaking there. What are you going to be? You're going to be talking about.
So I get one of my presentations. I'm CLE certified, so you get post credits for it. I do a whole thing on post traumatic success.
I like that.
Yeah.
Post traumatic success. I encourage you guys to follow him, listen to the Suffering Podcast, and
after the Relentless Project, right?
Preferably before, right? Like, actually, no, after, right? Because I'd hate for them to be you go first and then they come to mine. Like,
no, you get the main course first. You always got to finish your main course, and then you get maybe a little dessert, no matter what it is.
Am I the dessert? Or
No,
dessert?
I'm like the appetizer. You're the main course.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. Go follow him, listen to his story, and I do appreciate you for coming out. This is the one with Kevin Donaldson, and we're out. Later.